Good morning, everyone. It's 8 o'clock. Time for our council budget workshop. On the docket for today is Mayor and Clerk, Housing, Community Development, and All Public Works Department. Celeste says she is ready to go. There was a request that as you talk about these things, if you're talking about a specific line item that's being different, please give us the number on that line item so the council members can access that number a little easier. Celeste, you're up.
Okay, so I'll go through mayor, clerk, council first, which is the first page. And it's the account numbers are 001-610. And then the cost center of 6320 training. We decreased that 3,000. We had some extra built in for the new city administrator, but I don't think we'll need that this year or next year. 6413 payments to other agencies decreased 500 just to reflect actual spending out of that. 6499 contractual services decreased $1,000. We were leasing a postage machine, but that lease is complete. 6506 supplies decreased $1,000 just to reflect actual spending. 6508 postage decreased 300 to reflect actual spending, and we do pay more electronically, so that saves a little bit of money. 6599 miscellaneous supplies increased 700 to reflect actual. And that's all the changes for mayor, clerk, council. Do you guys have any questions on the 001-610?
Yeah, Celeste, can you break down for us what positions are included in the full-time and
Yeah.
part-time salaries?
So it's the mayor, it's all of council, it's myself, Amy Benson, 25% of Shannon's salary is in here. She's payroll, human resources. And then 34% of Jim's salary is in here. Jim?
Any questions?
Okay, I'll move on to data processing. And the account number is 001-611. And the changes, 6230 training, we increased 6,000. We're either going to be switching to a new software or transitioning to the cloud for our current software. But we will probably need some training on that regardless of which way we go. And then 6499 contractual decreased by 10,000, and we moved the software expense to a capital fund, 306. Any questions on data processing? Okay, moving on to legal, 001-640-6411. We decreased that $10,000 just to reflect actual spending. Hopefully we'll still be under that, but estimate. And moving on to municipal building 001650, 6320, property maintenance, an increase of 2,000 just because of increased costs. And 6371, we decreased 2,000 just to better reflect actual usage. We're still trying to get a good estimate after moving into this building, but I think we're getting there. 6373 telephone decreased 400 just to reflect actual usage. 6380 miscellaneous, an increase of 3,000. Things just pop up here and there around this building, so that seems to be kind of where we've ended at recently. 6490 professional services, decrease of 700, just to mirror the actual spending. 6598 janitor supplies, a decrease of 250. And 6599 miscellaneous supplies, a decrease of 1,000. Any questions on municipal building? Okay, moving on to general insurance. We increased the ICAP insurance 5%. That was the recommended increase this year. So hopefully it's not more than that.
Is that,
And that's 001-660-6408. Sorry.
okay. Is that health insurance?
No, that's property vehicle. It's like bonding insurance for the whole city. And then lastly, franchise fee refunds 001-950-6161. We decreased that by 155,000 just to align with the actual number of rebates being submitted. But I don't know, if you guys will want to keep that in there or not, but I did build some in just for now. So, should be right after. Oh, it's after public. So there is also public service TV. I apologize. That's right before franchise fee refunds. There was no change. That's just the cost of putting the meetings on YouTube. And then there's the page with franchise fees. Sorry about that. Any questions over those departments? Not that concludes mine.
Question that came up with from Michael. Let's hand. Is that right? Yeah. Staffing. I'll hand out the sheets that hopefully I gave out enough each direction for staffing by department. So as you ask questions about how many positions are in each one, this doesn't have the names identified with anybody, but it does have at least the positions. There's enough, I just don't know. May not have a question on this, but. So with that form, I just kind of robbed what Cole had done 3 years ago from the 24 budget presentation. And surprisingly, the staff number is the exact same count within one FTE as it was then. There's a little bit different distribution in terms of how the salaries are broken down between departments, because some of the positions, as Celeste went through what's in City Hall, there are a couple of positions that the pay has been moved around a little bit. But as you think through what was presented with the, for example, the police and fire department budgets and animal control, you see their positions out, or their number of people by department outlined as they presented it. That sheet shows by department down through the general fund total is just over halfway down the sheet. And I don't have this sheet, and I can't find it on when I'm talking on what I have saved. So general fund total is what, 63 people? And is the positions that we haven't talked about yet will be in Pam's and Brian's budget presentations. But Pam, you have what your position, and then a portion of Annette's is in your budget. So that's how you end up with 1.17 employees. Yep. Yeah, poor Annette is broken down into so many pieces, it's hard to keep track of her. Brian, you have people by department, the parks, cemetery, and bridge. And I assume that you'll go over that a little bit, but you have two full-time in each of those departments, and then you have a major who's over all of them, or Bob. Gets split a quarter into several different funds. And then you see the outside departments that are not in the general fund, but towards the bottom, combination of areas that are Brian's responsibility and then Tom Wills. Below that grand total, there is a little bit more additional part-time salaries by department. We don't have a lot of part-time, but Celeste mentioned mayor and council in her presentation. In City Hall's budget, there's a part-time line item, and that is you all. So you can get a breakdown on where our personnel costs go. You know, overall, we're right at 100 employees. Our overall personnel cost is a little over $10 million, $107,000 per employee. And I did get, before Brian gets into his, I think, who's up next, Brian or Pam? Casey. Well, even before any of them get into theirs, I'm going to hand out a capital project sheet. Somebody asked, I can't remember which of you asked at the last council or the budget meeting about having a summation sheet that had all of the capital projects on it. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. It's hard for me to, I put it onto one sheet, and I probably should have had it front and back, because it is, this older people are starting to lose the ability to read these things. So as we had presentations the other night, The equipment for police and fire is up at the top there, broken down by the line items that they were asking funding for. As you look, it shows the sheet is set up to show the department, the equipment or project they are looking to fund, the anticipated cost, which fund we will be putting in or paying for the project out of. For example, with the police department, we have a capital project and equipment fund. That's fund number 306. We'll be doing a cash borrowing and paying for this equipment. The cash borrowing will be one that we're using. We're going to put, it'll be a debt service eligible project with the idea of paying off the debt within 1 year and using local option sales tax, property tax relief to make the debt service payment on that, not a debt service levy. But you can see then the funding sources on the right. Celeste mentioned software equipment or software conversion within City Hall for if we end up having to do the conversion of our accounting software. That's in that same fund number 306 with under City Hall designation. And as we move on, Pam and Casey will have with their budget presentations, they'll talk about their housing demo fund. We've traditionally done that in a general fund. This has been moved out to a separate fund now. We'll have 200,000 that we put in there out of that same short-term borrowing. And then anything that they don't get used up out of the demolition costs in a given year out of that 200,000 will roll over into the following year. And most of the other projects, I think, are still to come. Well, they have not been presented. Most of this is Brian's sheets. So does this, I don't know if this is helpful or more confusing. So that's kind of an interlude between Celeste and then moving on to Pam.
Excuse me. I really don't have many changes on my actual budget. We did raise payments to other agencies.
Pam, which number are you?
I'm sorry, you did tell me to do that. It is 540-6413. It's payment to other agencies.
So yeah, within the packet, all of the Celeste budgets were done. Then Casey's sheet would have been the next one after it, and then the 540.
So that was raised $9,000. Actually, what we actually did with that one, per capita dues come out of that for Southeast Iowa Regional Planning Commission, which has always came out of that, but we wanted to make sure that the Housing Trust Fund did ask the council for a match for $10,000 for the grant that they do. So that was put in my budget for $10,000. It usually comes out of, it depends. I mean, sometimes it comes out of my budget, sometimes it'll come out of a different area. So we just wanted to make sure it was in there somewhere. 6490 services and professional fees. That dropped $4,000. I keep trying to get some code revision done, and I haven't been very successful. I do want the council to know that I think most of you know I'm retiring in 9 months, but I'm very willing on my own time to do code revision. Just do it at the house and send it in for review to the council and city attorney. So I do want you to know that I'm willing to do that. Professional fees, also engineering comes out of that. So if we have something, if I have a building project that somebody's doing that I'm not quite sure if it's being done correctly, or sometimes I do have an engineer take a look at it. Most of the time, if it's building code information that the homeowner or property owner has chosen to do and it looks a little sketchy, I actually require them to have the engineer come take a look at it, and they pay for it. But there's sometimes that I do need some backup. Let's see. Operating expense, that didn't change. My iWork software, or our iWork software comes out of that. That's,
Give us the number again, Pam.
I'm sorry, 6507,
Gotcha.
okay? The iWork software is a building permit, and Casey has the housing, well, I should say nuisance portion on hers. I pay also ARC GIS out of that, which is subscriptions. It's licensing to for our GIS system. And what else comes out of that? We also have a contract with the county every 3 years. I mean, we decide every 3 years whether we want to participate. If the county's going to do a flyover, and then they have that layer, it's very helpful to be able to just view property lines that you can't actually take the property line, but you can do an estimate on the property line, and also whether somebody's done construction that you weren't aware of, or it's very helpful for that. Other than that, does anybody have any questions?
How many days?
Oh, I didn't count this morning.
Day off normally.
Good morning. Casey Barnes for budget regarding 00170 for nuisance housing.
So that would have been right before, in your packet, right before what Pam went through with the,
Got to go backwards for this. There we go. Hey, Case, move the microphone a little closer.
Do what? Up?
closer to your mouth,
Okay. Here?
because it just doesn't pick up
Keep-
if you
keep
don't
coming.
get it close enough.
Okay.
There you
Got
go.
it. Okay. All right. So we can start with, there really isn't a lot of changes besides nuisance labor. But I'll go back up to subscriptions. They went down $50. They're 170, 6210. Training, we reduced 500. That's 6230. We reduced it. It hasn't really been utilized. It's not that we don't want to or I don't want to. It's just something that we've kind of put to the side and did our day to day. Travel, same. Let's see. Our gas oil expense, we didn't utilize all of it, so we decreased it by 100. That's the 6331 line. Maintenance, you never know with your vehicle, but we went ahead and brought it down 250 from past usage. The big one here is our nuisance labor, which this is where we cut grass, we secure, we clean up. It's in regards to the nuisance, neglect, lack of presence, abandonment. where we need to step in and make our neighborhoods a little more pleasant and stable. So we're asking for 20,000 more on that, but that's really, we really don't know the number of these problems that are going to hit us, and the cost of things obviously have gone up for everybody. We don't want to use it, but we might as well expect the worst, hope for the best kind of thing.
Which line item was that?
That is 6380. And-
Who do we use to do the labor for that?
We have contractors, so like subcontractors. We have 3 to 4 different mowers. We've learned over time historically, we haven't put our eggs in one basket because it's such a gross amount of work for one group to handle. And it comes up so sporadically, like you can't, month to month, you don't know the weather, or you don't know the events of people's nuisance, trash, junk vehicles.
Is it our mowers or theirs?
I'm sorry, what?
Is it our equipment or theirs?
No, it's it's their own equipment. Absolutely. Yep.
Casey, can you go over the outlier, why the current budget for that line item is 180,000 higher than you're projected for next year? And what you projected for next year is in
So-
line with all the other years?
Oh, go ahead.
That, if you look at 6490, what's in the 6490 column, right below it, the other professional services, you've historically had 180 to 200,000 budgeted in it.
Mhm.
And that is where the nuisance abatement has been, or the housing demo has been covered. And for some reason, last year's budget, there was a decision made to combine those and put those up into the higher one. I asked Casey to just do the expenditure where it has historically been done, even this current year, and it doesn't match what was budgeted. The two
Yeah.
line items are flipped a little bit, but it would match for consistency in how things have actually been expensed over time. But that would be the reason last year's budget number was significantly higher at the 260,000 versus the 80,000. She was still dealing with two different pots of money, 60,000 or so for the nuisance
Smaller
abatement,
nuisance jobs.
and then the 200 or 190,000, I think, for
180
180
for
for demo.
demolition matters.
So if you combine those two, what do they end up
It was
being?
the 260 or the,
That's moving
confused.
forward, it's 260?
280
yeah, it was
next year.
280. Yeah.
So it's going up 20, is that what we're saying?
Correct. And if you look at what she has spent on over the last few years, she was at 87,000 last year in this line item. The year before, she was at 73. So the 80,000 kind of makes more sense for what the trend has been for what she's had to spend to try to keep up with nuisances.
And actually, sorry, in this year, I mean, we've done approximately 963 mows, secures, weed issues, cleanups, and just miscellaneous things that come about that are from neglect and abandonment.
How does,
960,
does this go on people's property taxes, correct?
correct.
And then.
Yeah,
when
unless
that-
it's like litter where we can't determine
Right.
the foul,
And
yeah.
I don't know if we ever get any of that money back, but if we do, does it go back into this or where does it go?
It goes into actually,
General fund.
I have no idea why this has gone the way it has, but it goes into Fund 160, the Economic
Um,
Development Fund.
Yes. I think so.
And that covers, we run several different housing projects out of that. That's also where we've covered doing matches for grants have gone through that. And that's ended up being a source of revenue to cover it. We've done payments to Keok Economic Development Corp., Main Street, Saripa, out of that. There are ongoing contributions to them has gone
Those
to
would
some.
be matters that Pam
Yeah.
addresses.
So I believe that's, years ago, that's where they actually took the demo and nuisance out of. So they would put it back in there. So that can actually be changed if you want it to be changed to put it elsewhere.
As that fund has we came into this year with that having $43,000 sitting in it. But we have a couple of major grants that are still ongoing that one of them has a match to that we have to make sure that we get covered. And this next year's budget, we will use a portion of that balance to fund the deficit in the SID Center. $80,000 will get transferred over to cover the deficit in the SID Center out of that. And I assume that this is probably a fund that I have to cover next week. So.
Okay, so let's see, we are at, sorry. So we got through the nuisance. We kind of went over the demo situation where it moved to 170, 640.
And I'm sorry,
Okay.
I guess part of what I should have said with that, since we're not covering that, we bring in about, looks like we brought in 40,000 in last year's budget, 41,000 a year before that, 70,000 a year
Mhm.
before that. And if you think about her spending 60 to 80, 90,000, we do not recover anywhere near what we spend on this.
Let's see, other agencies, that would be where we work with, if I send special assessments to the treasurer, if we have payout to Great River. Those are the items that come from the 12,000 there in the 6413 line. Publications, those are where we put legal publications in the newspaper. We send recorded items to the county, and that's the 170-6402. We've kept that the same. Professional services, that's where the confusion is with Jim just went over with the demo. The other funds that maybe come out of that or do come out of that for 6490, which probably capital now, would be engineer fees, if I would by chance have any. We did have engineer, like for example, the nuisance demo that was on South Fifth, that was a pretty incredible feat. So we did have, a little extra eye on that because we had some really close neighbors. So, and that went to nuisance for billing. We tried to put back that to recover, but we still haven't recovered on that. It was a few thousand, couple thousand. Then moving down to 170-6499, citywide cleanup, which is something that we can give back to the community. Everybody loves it, no matter where they are economically. If there's a little depression for them or if they're thriving and doing everything they can for the city, that's something that we can do for them and be present and always welcome new ideas that we can utilize this program for. Like, how can we do it? We do it twice a year. Is there other ways that we can do it? Can we do it quarterly? Something like that. We're open to ideas. Office expenses, all those have basically stayed the same. They've actually, some decreases, decreased budget request, $1,100 for operating, not been utilized steadily, so expecting hopefully the same. And postage, we decreased a little bit. I'm kind of concerned about that because we actually, there's a great amount of nuisance letters that have to go out for every year we spend out definitely 300 nuisance letters on grass, between junk, securing, those are repeats. We have to send first class and certified. Vehicles, the same situation. Demos, the same situation. Those have multiple notices and publications. Vacant properties are huge endeavor for the last few years, and it's been one of the greatest things I think we've ever done is that registration process. That takes quite a bit of mailing processes. And then invoices went out. So I want to fall back into that vacant property information. In 23, we probably started out with 280 vacant properties, solidly, if not more. I think right now, confidently, we're probably down to, obviously, probably 250, which still, it sounds terrible that it's, only 30,000 less, but in that 250, the people are making progress, or we've had taken action to tell them that they're vacant and they're not present enough. So we have made ways. We have over 60 that are registered. We have 30 in solid action of rehab. And we have nearly 100 in the court situation, whether it's just that they're down to that 10-day notice, we have them in a citation, or they've been in a citation. So we're calling all the people that are vacant as close as we can to the number we find out, that they have to work with us on this 1524 ordinance. And it really has helped many, many blocks with either them privately stabilizing by demoing or repairing, or us saying, hey, you've got something that you can do, to improve your community. But that's about it. We did complete 6 demos in the last, probably since July. So that's great. And we've got 2 more that the council has approved for us. Well, 1 just recently, and it should be done here in the next few weeks. And then 1 that was approved a couple months ago. And we have agreed that it's okay that they're a minute behind, and they're set anytime here in the next month as well. So we're looking at 2 more here in less than 6 to 8 weeks. So thank you very much.
One of the items that she mentioned, the vacant property registration, that part of the revenue within the planning and zoning, they bring in about $6,000 a year out of that. Overall fees for different permits that are done and filed through the department total a little over 50,000, 52,000 or so is what we have budgeted. And we brought in, for example, last year 56,000, year before 61, and year before 43. So the 52 is about an average for what comes in to offset the cost for those 2 departments. With the budget presentations that Pam and Casey did, their requests, I think I cut about $4,000 out of each of your departments, which they were so ecstatic about. But it's just trying to look at categories where the request was a little bit higher than what trends have been, and they, I know they want to make sure that they protect against fluctuations, and that's we do need to make sure to do that. But I think that we had a little bit of room to make some cuts in there. And then Brian, I had one area that I cut on yours, and I assume that you might mention that when you talk about rec.
I just want to point out too, with Casey talking, Casey and I went out yesterday and covered about a 20 block area that we're looking at for possible housing rehab. And we drove that entire area. How many abandoned and vacant did we come across, Casey? Do you remember that number?
I would definitely say a solid 15, I guess that would be approximately 10 to 15, confidently.
In each of those categories?
No, in abandoned, like abandoned, vacant, a high level of non-presence.
Yeah, and then we came across a number of that needed help, dilapidated, what I'd call dilapidated. And the thing that I wanted to point out was Casey knew every one of those houses we were talking about. Casey knew the situation behind every one of those, if it was abandoned or vacant. A number of them that were being worked with that were dilapidated. Casey knew the story on every one of those people, every one of those houses, and just wanted to say that, you know, she's doing a great job. So
Ready for the next one?
next. Nope.
All right, you should have a Public Works summary sheet in front of you with all the line items listed out, and we'll go through those line items, and if you have questions on any other line items, just stop me and ask. Just for a quick reference, any of the departments that have a 001 heading, those come from the general fund. All the other numbers do not, just for a quick reference. So we'll start with the sewer maintenance department, which is.
Brian, hang on just a sec. So what's the department number we're looking for now?
The first one?
Yeah,
610.
610.
They should be in, hopefully they're in order. Sewer maintenance is 610, 817.
It should be, but it is. That says 817.
610.
817 is the designator. Thank you.
Okay, so starting with sewer maintenance as we go down the list, 6240. We have a $1,500 increase. 6240 and 6299 are related to staff development and travel with that staff development, which is training and so forth. 6240 had a $1,500 increase and 6299 had a $1,000 increase. And those are basically due to, I would say, inflation, cost of travel, cost of the training that the guys need every year. 6230, we did a $45,000 decrease in that. We increased that last year to building repairs for the roof on the building out there. 6331, we did a $2,500 decrease to reflect our actual costs. 6332 was the same, $2,500 decrease to reflect actual costs. 6420 is a $600 decrease to reflect actual cost. 6499, we did a $45,000 increase. We've been gradually increasing that over the last couple years. Just a brief background, when ADM left and we got dinged by the EPA, the money was removed from that account down to WPC to help with the deficiency we had. That account is where that is the account we use if we have a sewer incident, collapse, or emergency repairs we have to do. So about 4 years ago, it was zeroed out, and now we're building it back up. So this year, the budget will be $150,000 if we, knock on wood, hopefully don't have any incidents, but if we do, that account takes care of that. And then 6530 is a $5,000 increase. And that is our lift station repair maintenance fund. Any questions on the sewer maintenance budget? That's all the changes that we made to it this year.
So a lot of these are funds for various types of maintenance. And so it's not that you've identified existing things that need to be addressed. It's you're just trying to stockpile for when that next surprise down the road
Correct.
shows
So
up.
like when we had the collapse on the 6th Street alley, that cost us around $90-ish thousand that we didn't have budgeted because of that, gradually trying to increase that. So it covers stuff like that. You know, our sewer systems started in about the 1850s, so that we've got some pretty old lines still out there underneath the streets. Moving on, we'll go to the airport, 001-280.
Before moving on, actually, with the 610, the sewer, Michael, what kind of shape would you say our sewer lines are in?
Everywhere from good to very poor. I mean, like Brian stated, we've got some extremely old infrastructure in town. We've got sewers that range from 4-inch in diameter to over 12-foot in diameter. So, I mean, these bigger sewers that are 150-plus years old, I mean, at any given time, there's always the potential for collapse, and with infrastructure of that size, I mean, collapses get very expensive very quickly.
How about your lift stations?
Lift station wise, I think the city's sitting pretty well. I mean, in the past 10 years, there's definitely been a good amount of improvement. We're looking at, in the next 5 years, to maybe make some improvements to a couple of the older stations, but lift station wise, I think we're sitting pretty good.
So you don't have any actual projects that you have outlined and budgeted to do in this?
Not currently. We've talked recently, kind of since the December budget talks, trying to get some point repair projects and maybe a lift station project kind of in the works for the upcoming couple fiscal years.
So, and if you look at the capital project sheet that I'd given to you earlier, under the WPC water pollution control area, it does have a couple of line items there that don't have dollar amounts with them in this year's budget because it's not budgeted categories, but it is the sewer mainline repairs as well as those lift stations. We are going to be working with an engineering firm to try to put together a couple of packages, one that would be focused on the lift stations and the other for sewer mainline repairs. Our goal with those is to do about $1 million at a time. Although we did talk about potentially doing a sewer mainline repair project that might look more like a $2 million project. I'd put an idea of doing a million, because if we do a given project like that, get it out and onto the intended use plan with the state, we're eligible to go after CDBG funding for about $500,000 for each specific project. It made sense to me that about $1 million is a good spot to be at for getting that to subsidize a major portion of it. Speaking with the engineer, we may be looking at a little bit larger one that more in the $2 million range, if we can put ourselves in a position to maybe get with an SRF loan to get additional grant funding to cover 30% or so of the project. That's though on a reimbursement basis, and we don't know if that funding is going to still be available by the time we're looking to do it. So we are developing some projects here to do stuff where we can maximize getting some state and federal funding to help offset the costs. But that hasn't been done the last couple of budgets really since
Yeah, I mean, I would say it'd be worth noting. I mean, in-house, I mean, we've made some small repairs as needed throughout the city, but as far as an actual repair project, I mean, the city really hasn't done anything from a maintenance standpoint for probably close to 10 years on the sewers. So it's definitely something we want to try to get in a routine of addressing some of these areas.
In some of the sewers are one of the hidden things that no one sees, and it's only a problem when it becomes a problem. And even as you've look at some of the projects that were identified in the past to do an in situ lining in some potential lines to try to extend the life cycle of those, a project that you had that may have been feasible for doing that the last time this was looked at, the condition of those pipes might now be bad enough that you're having to do a full depth replacement, and that's a significantly more expensive project. So doing some of this stuff early can really be beneficial cost-wise, but you have to be able to prioritize and get some money set aside for it.
like Jim said, I mean, most people don't think about the sewers. We see the streets and the parks and everything else that's visible every day, but I mean, the sewers aren't a problem until you go home and your toilet doesn't flush. Residents tend to get unhappy with that.
So I did want to cover that before we had you move on to another area, because I think that's a pretty important thing, that even though we don't have any major projects set up here, we are working on some, and they may come up in this next fiscal year. If they do, they would be grant funded, and then we do have some cash on hand in some of those funds. And I'm going to go through the fund balance sheet when we get to the end of this, just to make sure, just a refresher. We have some new people on here who probably haven't dealt with our fund structure. So I want to make sure we have an idea how those funds can be used too.
We do have a couple of sewer replacements that are going to be happening within street projects coming up in the next 2 years too, so that will help. Okay, moving on to the airport, 001280. Line item 6408 is insurance. It decreased $500 just for the actual cost. 6503 is our bulk fuel and oil resale. We're increasing that $45,000. We had a really good year of selling jet fuel at the airport, so we're anticipating having to buy a lot more next year just for the resale purposes. And that generates, I think, a net around what, $30,000 to $35,000 a year for the airport.
Brian, does the cost of jet fuel kind of reflect what we as consumers also see for trends with our car gas?
The fuel changes like weekly out there. So we get reports, Raymond gets an email and I get an email from the providers of every week the price changes.
But just general trends, like if the pumps are down, is the jet fuel price typically going down for the same reasons, or?
I don't think it really fluctuates as much with regular fuel sales as the airport. It's different. The other at the airport, 6710 is the capital improvement line. As Jim stated, we're moving those capital projects to that 305 account for the airport. So that line item will be zeroed out this year, and then the dollars for our capital improvement projects will be in that 305, 750, 6490. The major project coming up at the airport is the lighting project for the secondary runway. That is I believe that's still a 5% match project? 10% match project? They just recently changed our 5% matches back up to 10. So the budget for that is $864,000. And then we would be responsible for 10% of those projects that come out of that.
Yeah, and so in the capital project fund, it's going to be a Fund 305. We'll budget the 500 or 820-ish for about 820,000 for federal grants. And we'll do a transfer in of 50,000. That's a little bit more. That's 870,000. We have an estimated project, 864,000. If we do a transfer over and there's a little bit extra, that's actually not a bad thing, because Raymond, you have projects that go pretty much every year for upgrades out there, and so it'll just be a future match. But the transfer that we'll do will be out of local ops and sales tax, the infrastructure fund portion of that. Use an allocation of 50,000 to cover it.
Any airport questions?
Did you get the letter from the airport commission on the
I did, yeah.
airport manager's salary? And does that fit within what you've got here?
So right now, all of these budgets are calculated with our annual cost of living of 4% raise. There is no salary adjustments calculated in any of them.
That's, that position, what happened with you had several positions that, historically, what's happened with pay increases?
So
Because this is beyond my,
So I
knowledge.
started here in 2023. That first year, the council gave, with the exception of myself, because I just started, but gave department heads a salary adjustment. And at that time, it was said to the employees at the management level that they would get that same salary adjustment the following year. That did not happen, and then it did not happen again the following year, and now we're into the third cycle of that not happening, but the climate's changed a little bit on our budget, so that ask is currently not in my presentation right now.
but you have several departmental managers who would fit into that same area. If you Assume,
So it would be street department, which would be Tom, Bob with sanitation, parks, cemetery and bridge, Michael with the sewer, and Raymond with the airport. Or
They
the
would-
management level.
they would all be in the same boat for a consideration like that, but this is a council decision regardless on what to do. You can treat what's come from the airport commission as a recommendation. They'd like to see that happen. I think all of that midline management level would like to see that occur. We did not build that in. We built in what's historically been the management positions along with department heads are treated as it's all the non-union group are historically have been given as a baseline the same raise that has gone with the union contracts, and that's what's built into the budget specifically. Any request to do something different would be an additional dollar amount to try to figure out how to cover.
Anything else on the airport? We'll move on to the street department, which is funded out of road use tax. That's a 110, 211. And there's a couple, 3, 4 budgets following that are all that 110 number that are funded out of road use tax. There's just a couple changes in the street department. One being 6710 capital equipment. We are in need of replacing a 1-ton pickup truck, which is one of our plow trucks. We had kind of talked about this in November, December. It would ultimately be replacing a couple of older trucks and actually we have a 2013 truck that Tom drives that we completely lost the bottom of the bed out of this winter, so it's got a piece of plywood in it right now. It would replace that truck directly. So that money is not under the capital funds that Jim has stated or out of the general fund. It'll get paid for right out of the road use tax budget. And it is $64,500. The other line item change is 6799. That is our street repair fund. We want to increase that $100,000. That's where we pay for our chip seal projects that we do in-house, patching. We'd also like to do a couple more of the kind of smaller mill and fill projects out of that next year. Do you have any questions on the street department? Those are the only 2 changes that we had in the actual budget besides the annual increase in salaries.
So the road use tax we get, that is essentially a fixed amount calculated by the state that
Yes,
we
there's a
receive.
dollar amount associated per citizen,
Mhm.
and then that's calculated, and then that's the funds that we receive.
So do we anticipate the road use tax receipts going up?
Not
If we're going to increase our street repair by 100,000.
Not
we have-
that significantly.
Where's that
So
coming from?
We have a
So-
rollover of that every year. So it's in, actually, that money is here.
We came into this fiscal year with $1.9 million in that fund balance in the road use tax fund. For perspective, our annual receipts are 1.4 million for road use tax dollars specifically. We have another agreement from the state for 70,000 for maintaining the,
For Main Street and South Seventh.
and then we transfer into this fund 375,000 out of a levy for employee benefits. So overall revenues in road use tax, 1.8 million. Carryover balance of 1.9 million. So my comment to Brian is, as we were doing this budget, we've got a significant balance in there. There's no reason not to increase what we're spending. The increase, though, from year to year is not keeping up with what our costs are. For perspective, the allocation that was built into last year's number was $139, or at least what they gave us for budgeting purposes. They estimated $139 per person to come up with a 1.35 million or so. This year's number is $140 per capita. That's less than 1% increase. You know, and next year the estimate is a little bit larger, but it's $250, and on $140, that's still less than 2%. It's not keeping up with what our costs are. So I don't want to like have Brian just spend that balance all the way to zero, but there's certainly flexibility to spend more than what we are receiving right now. And this, the way the budget's presented would bring that number down
Next bit. I think
about
our budget is-
150,000 net taken down during the course of the year.
I think our budget from last fiscal year to this upcoming is 65,000 less, even with increasing that to 100,000.
Yeah, we're
adding
losing more
100,000
than
to that.
200,000 this year, or in that range in the current year's budget. But we are also adding the 70,000 didn't used to be in this fund, the roadway maintenance is a part of that. That roadway maintenance fund money was going into the general fund. And so when Celeste is budgeting sheets, when she has to do the annual road report, this last year, she showed the 70,000 of revenue going into the general fund, and then there's no offsetting expense because we don't have any road expense in the general fund anymore. So we needed to get that money moved to the fund where the actual expense is occurring. Sorry.
That's
Go
all
ahead.
right. Explanations are good. Continuing on with road use tax. That also includes vehicle maintenance, our snow removal budget, and our street cleaning budget. We didn't make any changes to those other than the salaries that come out of those budgets. We did make a change in our street lighting and traffic lighting. Historically, those have had their own accounts out of the general fund. We've moved those to road use tax because I mean, we discussed this and it should be taken out of road use tax. So that 110,240 would be street light, 110,230 would be street lighting, 110,240 is traffic lighting. Collectively, we moved the $26,500 for our electricity and maintenance costs from the general fund to road use tax.
And it kind of matches the long-term trend of what's been done. If you were
Yeah.
to look at where expenditures used to be done 4 or 5 years ago, you had closer to 100,000 in the general fund that was being expensed for these categories, and they've gradually gotten moved over. We moved over a good chunk of the electricity bills previously, and this is getting the rest out of the general fund.
Yep. Any other questions on our road use tax fund? Next one is the parks budget.
Back to the general fund?
Yeah, it kind of jumps around a little bit. I kept these in the same order as last year. I believe we had some conflicts with scheduling, so we kind of went in the order of when people had to leave. To keep everybody on their toes too, jumping from general fund back to non-general fund. Parks budget, this is 001430. This is that 6497 is the fund that Jim decreased in the park budget. Historically, that is our Parks and Rec kind of board discretionary fund when they have projects that they recommend to myself or Bob that we take to council. We've usually put $25,000 in that, at least since I've been here we have. We decided to drop that $15,000 just to help. We left 10,000 in there just in case something pops up that they would like to do. Sometimes they'll recommend buying some play equipment, or they use that fund also to help out with the Halloween program they do at the park. They spend some money out of that for 4th of July that they do at Ram Park, that kind of stuff.
And again, next week, we will have more of a summary statement of where the general fund sits, so that we can look at the revenues and corresponding expenditures that have been presented by department, and try to give some flesh to why we have cut some of these items already, and it'll give some dynamics for why we have to do something different than what we are currently or have traditionally been doing.
Now, the big deduction in the parks is at 6710 capital of that $1,035,000. That was trail monies that has been expended in the last year. That project should be completed in the spring before the next fiscal year rolls over. So it's 95% completed right now. So looking forward to that. That brings me to the capital fund again, the 306-430-610. That is where we are requesting the toolcat for trail maintenance. I believe Jim maybe touched on that at the previous meeting, but that's we asked for $75,000 for that piece of equipment. It's something that we would really like to have. We kind of moved away from a standard side-by-side to this piece of equipment because of the way that it works with our other Bobcat attachments that we have with our skidsters. It has the same front end attachment that we can use our bucket, augers, that kind of things that we already own. There's also articulating, so it moves side to side. It has a dump bed on it. It's hydraulic. So the broom that would come with it would be a hydraulic broom to clean the trail off. If you buy a broom with the side-by-sides, you have to buy a separate motor with that broom to run the broom because it would be gas powered. But we're asking that for consideration for this upcoming budget season. Other than that, parks, the other topic of discussion for that is obviously mowing that we kind of talked about at the council meeting, but I don't really know when we want to get into all of that. I mean, we've got a couple months before we'll start needing to hire for park cemetery mowing. That usually comes end of March, April. So that budget line item would be 001430-6499.
One more time, Brian.
6499,
What was the middle number?
430. It's still in the parks budget.
Gotcha.
I do have just one question on the $205,000 on the temporary. I don't remember what happened, but we used to use prisoners.
Right.
And what happened to that?
They stopped allowing us to use prisoners before I started with the city. I don't know, like, historically why that was.
It was COVID.
Was it COVID? And
Is
then
that yeah, is that something that is
Bob's checked
available?
into that and we can't get them.
Oh, really?
And I can't remember who had made the comment that they're able to use that same labor force to in-house and have a better return for
Their investment.
the jail system than what they were getting with us.
I think that was one of the responses that Bob got, is the amount that when they use, the amount the city would pay them didn't amount to a whole lot for the.
It didn't
prison system.
justify what they're going to use. We'd have to pay more than significantly more than what was being paid previously to ever get them to come back, because they can do other things that are more profitable and safer for them, really.
Brian, I have a quick question related to the mowing. Has it been discussed maybe reducing the mowing schedule as a way of saving money in that area when we go
What
to
do you
hire?
mean reducing the schedule?
What's that?
What do you mean reducing the
Not
schedule?
mowing as often, letting the grass get a little taller before we go in and mow it again,
I mean,
just as
that-
a way of
that-
cutting costs.
We really have a hard time keeping up with doing that now. I think you would get a lot of blowback in the parks and the cemetery especially. Right-of-ways, probably not. Those guys also mow the public library, they mow the police department, they mow the Sid Center, basically all of our city buildings. They take care of our parking lots. There's a notebook pad sheet of mowing that those 3 departments take care of. Really 2 departments, because the cemetery guys don't ever leave the cemetery. So we have 2 cemetery employees that are there full-time doing that in the summer, and then basically the summer help, all they're doing is running weed eaters all day long, around the tombstones and the trees, and same with the parks, they're weed eating around the equipment and the trees. Oh, yeah, they mow 40 hours a week from March till,
What's the turnover to get through, for example, a cemetery? Do you get through everything in once a week, or
No.
what's the frequency there, Bob? You have portions that only get covered once a month? But you do have some sections that you mow more frequently than that. Yeah.
When we mow, we get it done in 1 week, you're asking half. We, it could take up to a month to get to the front and then turn around and start.
Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, one of the,
Just curious about that.
one of the questions, I guess, is like, when we do like clear out town, like Joyce Park or something
Right.
like that, do we trailer those
yep,
now? Okay.
yep. We trailer to most all the parks except for Rand. We have a building at Rand that we store those mowers in. So the big push in the spring is the cemetery to get it ready for Memorial Day. And that takes those 2 guys, our temp help, and then we rotate guys in from almost every other department in the city. And then we allow overtime for approximately 3 weeks that those guys will come and work, from 3:30 till dark, just to get the cemetery ready for Memorial Day.
Yeah, just one of the questions that I had the other night, what I was trying to go at was, when we have these bigger parks like Joyce and some of these other ones that are way out or whatever, that's where I was talking about, if we hired that done, would that benefit? And I know if they're using their own equipment, they're using everything. The question I have is, if last year we spent 205,000, would taking to privatize like Joyce Park and some of the other ones would that balance itself out? Or is there any way we could do a little study on that?
We'd have to just get some bids from some mowing contractors. The other thing with Joyce Park is we have a 28E with the school district, and that can always be renegotiated. It has to be a mutual decision between the council and the school board, but so we don't mow the actual ball fields out there. In our 28E, it's kind of vague, but if you've been out there, there's a sidewalk that kind of runs up and around in the parking lot. We mow everything from that sidewalk to the highway, basically. And then the school district takes care of the ball fields and everything inside that sidewalk.
So, we call it seasonal. So how does it end? I mean, how long do you just keep going till you think you don't need to mow anymore during the year, or?
Yeah, basically till the grass turns brown, and then we'll keep some on to do leaves. Cemetery and the parks, they could do leaves from October and they could just still do leaves now. The cemetery is usually burning leaves from November up until they start mowing again, just depending on the weather. I mean, and then that's not the only thing that comes out of that line item. You know, we hire out tree removals in the parks, tree removals in the cemetery, that kind of thing. Anything that we would bring forth with a contract, say for the park, would come out of that line item, so.
And when you do like tree removal, because there's always going to be some every year.
Right.
Do we get bids from places?
Yep.
Ahead of time?
We do, if we can do them in-house, we do them in-house, but some of them are just so big and dangerous that we will get, you know, just like anything else, we'll get 3 or 4 bids from the different tree services around the area and take the low bid on them.
Then Brian, this line item, it's showing the 50,000. That's just the parks share
That's
of
just the
that
park, yep.
200. So we would
Yep.
see the same line item in like cemetery and
And
the other
bridge,
departments,
yep.
yeah. And those
Yep.
all together add up then to that 200.
Yeah. And I mean, you can reduce the labor force that we hire temporary. I mean, we could limit it to 8 people or, whatever that is too, to try to save the cost. So the 12 employees doesn't necessarily mean that we have 12 employees constantly from March, April through November. We have teachers in the summer that come and work temp for us. We have college students that come home. Recent graduates, those are kind of the 3 that make up so some won't start till the end of May, depending on when they get out of college. The teachers won't start till school's out, that kind of thing.
But all that goes through the task force?
Yep.
Okay.
And if we get new people and they don't work out, Bob just makes a call down to the task force and says, so-and-so's not working out, could you send us somebody else tomorrow? Anything else on the parks specifically? We'll move on to the bridge budget. It's 690,850. And we'll start with the 6310. That's building maintenance. So within our bridge department, we have the White House down on the bridge, which would be under building maintenance. We have our 212 building, which is the offices for the bridge and the parks, and then we have the storage building down at the riverfront. We lowered that $10,000 just because knock on wood, this year we haven't had to do any maintenance on those buildings. But we always want to keep some funding in there because you never know what can happen. On the 6320, we lowered that after I had this summary completed, so it's not on your summary list, but it's 6320. Same kind of deal. It's the property maintenance surrounding those buildings in the bridge area. We lowered it $10,000 just because we've spent $2,500 so far this year. We can have a discussion on the bridge if you'd like. I mean, I know there's probably a lot of questions from council people about our rail bridge. Not very many communities own a swing span bridge that crosses the Mississippi, but
Yeah, the concerns I have is that we haven't raised the rates since 2016.
that is in the process right now. We've been working with the Short Line Railroad pretty heavily, especially over the last year. We have an MOU that is pretty close to being able to come to council. that does have rate increases built into it for 4 years and then opportunity to negotiate after that.
Actually,
We're
it doesn't say-
kind of delicate with it because
It
of
doesn't
the,
say opportunity to negotiate. It says we have the
Right to-
ability to raise it
yeah.
as necessary.
we've been kind of delicate with it. We're trying to get a Chrissy grant with the help of the short line for upwards of $10 million for repairs on the bridge.
7.
7. It was 10 at one time. They are offering to throw in some matching funds, pretty significant amounts with that.
They're also covering all the preliminary engineering to
engineering
get the
costs,
grant
yeah.
submitted.
Like I said, we're really close to the MOU. Both parties have agreed to the rate increases, which is kind of the biggest portion of that for us. It still doesn't cover our operating costs, but it gets us closer.
Yeah, I know there's always been the discussion that we use some of those bridge funds for some of the mowing and stuff like that, but we've been doing that for umpteen years.
So, yeah, so this budget comes out of the bridge department.
I don't like what's going on with this. This really should be a majority of this cost should be general fund expense. We have used the bridge fund to supplement and hide an
lot.
annual loss.
Which, in one way, it's okay if you know where you're at, but the problem is that demolition fund is really in serious problems.
And I think historically, historically, the city has not wanted to do a whole lot with the bridge because of the user. I mean, everybody knows there's basically one company that uses our bridge. That they employ the short line, and then we bill the short line for cars that are going across. But at some point, you get to where we can't absorb all that cost like we have historically. I mean, I can just about guarantee you that the short line railroad doesn't absorb any cost when they charge the company to move their rail cars. And we absorb a lot. So if you look at our budget, the majority of that is maintenance.
Mhm.
We have almost a $400,000 budget. Only 140-ish of that is salaries. The rest of it's all maintenance stuff that we have to maintain. We get an annual report from our engineers, and
You're over 200,000 benefits.
oh, well, I was just looking at that top line. We get an annual report from our engineers, and we also have to follow the Federal Rail Administration guidelines on repair work. So we try to keep up with that, and we've done a pretty good job the last couple of years. So we've actually been able to lower some of our maintenance costs due to the repairs that we've made in the last couple of years.
But regardless, it's a question on the fees that we charge them. We were given that they were going to spend a significant amount in this first year. We weren't looking to do a rate increase on them immediately, but we do want to have 10% annual rate increases over the 4 years, and that probably will need about that same level for a few more years after that.
Yeah, what I don't understand is 20-something years ago, we met with them, and we met with Roquette, and we started raising the rates per car. I'm sure we still get paid per car.
Yeah, it's per car.
Okay. And then I don't know why we were doing annual increases. And I don't know why we stopped.
Well, I can tell you in 2016, the council at the time passed an ordinance with a rate fee in there, which is not the same as a resolution. Resolutions are pretty easy to get changed. The ordinance, we have to go through the pub. So we will have to change the ordinance in order to incorporate the rate increases.
Well, we need to because
We do,
everybody
yeah.
else don't have a problem raising rates.
Yep.
So,
Well, we also have to remember that we're not with the same
The same
company.
we're not
that
with the
you
same
were
short
with
line anymore.
20 or
either.
10 or 15 years ago. It's changed 2 or 3 times in the last 10 years.
right. I just don't know why it stopped. I just don't know why, if we know our maintenance is going up and we know the cost of business is up and we know our salaries are going up, regardless of we were spending some mowing, I get that. We've always done that.
Right.
But it should be a minimum of cost neutral.
I agree.
And it's not. And I don't know why it stopped. And that's why I think it's a serious discussion. I'm glad we're having those.
So I would think that MOU would be ready within the next, hopefully in the next couple months, but it goes from, you know, myself and Jim meet with the rail. We come up with some things we need added, then it goes to their attorneys, comes back to us, goes, all right, it's a circle of,
I mean.
every time you change
it's-
something in it.
Let's be honest, though. We have one user. Used to be Griffin will use it a little
Right.
bit, but.
We do
basi-
have, yep.
We basically got one user, and the point of it is years ago, when that bridge came to ownership of us, there was like $6 million in there, and that was for a demolition fund. So if it ever had to be demolished, we had the money in there. 20 years ago, we did we went out and got us, seen what it would cost to demolish it, and I think at that time, it was like $3 million to demolish it because of recycling and everything else. I was told that that's down to 1.6 million,
Our account, I mean, Jim would know, I think that's pretty close.
which is a lot less than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And the point I'm trying to make is we're not going in the right, there's a lot of things we're doing wrong, but we're not going in the right direction with that. For example, it should be at least cost neutral. We shouldn't be taking money out of that reserve if or we need to get another study done to see what it's going to cost us to demolish it today, because that's supposed to be there for demolition. And if we're upside down, it's already a serious problem. But on the other hand, if we got one user, it should be cost neutral. If they can't come to terms of it being cost neutral, then why do we have it? Because they're their only user. So when those negotiations happen, we should get to cost neutral regardless, because that's the only user we have. And if it's that important to them, they need to pay us or figure another way out to maintain that bridge and have them take ownership or something.
Those are all part of our
Right.
talks, yeah.
But I'm just saying, I'm trying to be that strong hand to say, at the end of the day, we got to get back, and like Jim said, raise it 10% a year or whatever. We got to get back.
Right.
If our costs are going up or everything we're doing with our help, they should be maintaining that level.
Nope, I 100% agree.
So should we expect to see an ordinance change coming up in the near future? A resolution to
First of
change
all,
the
we will
ordinance?
It would
probably
be-
have the MOU before the council, and then,
If the Chrissy grant process doesn't materialize and that, I mean, we've been waiting for that to open for 6 months. If that doesn't materialize, we'll do a different track. But our goal would be, we're doing the MOU as part of that Chrissy grant application for a bridge rehabilitation project. And that would incorporate a change in those rates beginning 2028. If that ends up that we don't have that work, where that funding application, just the cycle isn't going to work, I'd say that we bring forward an ordinance change
Mhm.
with a increase anyway, and that would be more immediate.
right,
Because we're not operating under the terms of the MOU. But I mean, the MOU discussion started, I don't know how long ago. Dave had been working
so
on it.
I think Patriot took over 2-ish years ago, is when they took over is when the talks really started to amp up
And we didn't have, none of that discussion was about rates. It was about,
Well, initially, we were discussing, they had the idea that maybe they would want the bridge. And I
Yeah.
think after, I don't know, after it went through all of their legal teams, that they decided that they didn't want the bridge, but.
Oh,
they
I
would-
wouldn't
they
want
would
it
front-
either.
They would front load this,
Yeah.
this grant process with the engineering and then help
Yeah.
us with the match and
Yeah,
maybe offset some
I
of our
wouldn't want it
mechanical
either for
costs.
subsidizing it,
Right.
you know?
So the biggest discussion for them taking the bridge or us owning the bridge is which would be the easiest route to get the grant funding.
Yeah,
And
so I would say
municipality
over the
owning
next-
it with the rail partnership was the easiest.
over the next couple of months, it will be one avenue or the other, with either the MOU or an ordinance change. Just depending on how these circumstances kind of dictate it.
Mhm. Anything else on the bridge?
Oh, one other thing, you do have a line item down at the bottom of that fund.
On
It's the
the
last one, the one for 8,500.
Did you add that in there?
Is it not on there?
It's on the budget sheet.
What's that?
It's on the budget sheet, but I didn't have it on my,
6413, down at the very bottom, there's an amount for 8,500. I don't know
oh, that's,
why.
that's the current, that's just carryover, right? That's not a new one.
It's an existing
Right.
cost, but that, I don't know why we run this through here, but we collect $8,500 in the general fund, property tax levy for the support of the bus service provided by C-Bus.
And that's in the bridge fund?
And then it gets transferred, it's gone on for years. It gets transferred to the bridge fund and paid out of there. And I've just left it that way.
I didn't know
Still
that.
budgeted it that way. But that's why that number is in there. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why it's been that way, but I've just continued it.
Cemetery. 001450. So this is back to a general fund account. Line item 6320. We just, for some reason last year, I don't know why, or I can't recall why we zeroed out the property maintenance account, but we're just putting $3,000 back in there in case something happens.
And for perspective, we spent 14,000 year to
Yeah.
date, so.
Um, 6331, a $3,000 decrease to reflect our fuel costs. As most of you know, gas prices have went down significantly in the last year, so. 6373, it's our telephone bill out there. We're just, we increased it to reflect our actual costs. Kind of looks like what we've expended so far, we're gonna be right around that $2,500 mark this year also, so.
Is that our only option with telephone service out there?
So that would be telephone and internet service.
Okay.
Well, I don't know if if you were aware of the stuff we went through in the last year and a half with our telephones with CenturyLink, but we are no longer with CenturyLink. They kind of forced us to do a change to get away from pot lines. And we got that bill to the city for, I don't know, 50-some thousand dollars and ended up settling with them for 15 or something, but anyways, that's all changed in all of our buildings now. We no longer have, I believe, well, we have 4 pot lines left?
6.
6?
4 in the Sid Center and 2 at the theater.
Grand, yep. 6499 is the contractual services at the cemetery. We increased that $5,000 for a little bit extra monies for removing trees in this upcoming budget season. Cemetery has quite a few more trees that need removed. They are dangerous and difficult because most of them are on hills and there's tombstones around, and Bob's guys takes care of the ones that they can, but most of them they can't. So we put the liability on a contractor with their insurance to take those down, and we typically we let them haul the fallen trees back to our sanitation department, usually behind there, but that's what that increase is for. That's also the line item that temp help comes out of. The last couple years, if you notice, those budgets have been kind of high. That's all still, that was all stemming from the derecho that went through that damaged a lot of trees in the park. We got quite a bit of that refunded back from our insurance company. I don't recall how much, but we get like 400,000 back from insurance after the derecho collectively for the city.
you expended 14,000, but you did only 60,000.
No, this is 6499 we're looking at now.
The 6320, you expended 14,000, but you only put 3,000 in there.
Yeah, we're hoping not to have to do
Okay.
major property.
That was,
So part of that, if everybody recalls, there was a dump truck stolen and driven through our cemetery and damaged a bunch of tombstones and
so you don't anticipate another dump truck getting stolen?
no. I was actually in Des Moines at school and Bob called me at like 9 or whatever time, 9 or 10 o'clock at night and said, "You won't believe this. There's a dump truck parked in our cemetery." Any other questions on the cemetery? We will move along to sanitation. 67840. So right out of the gate at 6320, most of you are aware, there's a gentleman that's came before the council requesting an easement through our property out there to get to his property. So we had to throw some money in there for fencing. If that council does pass that and grant that gentleman an easement, we will have to fence that easement and we will have to move our gate and put in a new gate. The cheap estimate on that, I mean, without actually having going out to a fencing contractor, but using the numbers from the fencing that we've put in the last couple of years, it's not cheap to do that. Hopefully that number is high, but that's why that's in the budget right now. So just to make everybody aware of that. 6331 again is our gas and oil. We reduced that just for the actual cost and projected cost for next year. 6350, we put in $50,000 for repairs on truck number 26. It is also in need of a new Corrado can. And that's roughly the estimate to repair that. Our 6413, we reduced that $10,000. That just kind of reflects cost. That is our, that's what we paid Regional Waste Authority for dumping our garbage at the transfer station. And then 6801, when we were in our internal meetings, we were looking at that. That is the principal payment on our garbage truck loan. And Jim just kind of bumped it up to 70,000 to make it an even number, I think, as opposed to the,
No,
it
it
is 70?
changed. Yeah, it
and
changed.
historically, they've just put 69 in there,
Yep, the last,
or it did change.
the last 5 years of it is 70,000, not 69, beginning with this year's payment.
So that's what that is for. Have any questions on our garbage pickup, recycle pickup?
You did mention that, what did you mention about the leachate cap repairs?
That's on the next
Oh, okay.
budget. But I will mention that.
So sticking with sanitation here, similar to the question that I asked on the road use tax earlier, what's the receipt side for sanitation look like? Is that all self-sufficient?
Yes.
Through what we collect on the water bills?
Yep.
Is it by ordinance that we have the rates going up annually?
I think it's a resolution.
But we have traditionally been raising the rate $1 a year per residential customer. So current year, we're $28 per residence. Next year, it would be 29.
And Roger hasn't given us his report yet on how much the tipping fees are going to go up in July, but I'm assuming they will. Anything else on sanitation or garbage pickup?
Well, with that, I mean, we have, we entered the current fiscal year with about 500,000 in solid waste. And, right on the north. We bought a vehicle this year at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
So our balance, we had some carry, the reason it is at 500,000 is we'd done the GO loan in June and had the money in 350,000 set aside for that piece of equipment. We'll enter next year with 270,000. Historically, we've had plus or minus at 200,000 in this fund. Running the sanitation service itself, fairly expensive program, but the part that is a little bit more difficult to make the funding stream work is the next part of what Brian needs to talk about is, well, you can go ahead with the leachate.
Okay, leachate is 670, 841. So leachate has to do with, specifically with our north landfill. We kind of touched on this the other night. It's in post-closure, so it's not an active landfill, but we still have to monitor and spend money as recommended by our engineers in the DNR. The last couple years, we've been working on trying to control a seep that's been going into the creek out there. Our last report, that's seeping again. So underneath the capital improvement, we put $50,000 in there to cover those repairs. We try to do as much of it in-house with Michael's department and the guys as we can. And that kind of depends on how deep we have to dig. If there's a bunch of piping we would have to install, or if it's just bringing in clay and putting the Band-Aid on that to stop the seep. The other portion of that is the cap on that landfill is not in good shape. It's a much more significant project if we're forced to do it. Right now, we're not. We still maintain mowing and that kind of thing, but it kind of fluctuates anywhere from 2 feet thick, which is the minimum, to 6 inches, to some spots you can see some paper bags sticking out, and it's just deteriorated over the years. And I've tried to get grant funding from Miller Meeks, and we had some significant conversations about it. It's just hard to get grant money to cap a closed landfill, but we'll keep trying. So that $50,000 is just for repair work that we need to do to keep the DNR at bay, basically.
What's a true project cost, do you think, to do what really needs done out there?
So the last estimate we received from Klinger, which was kind of really preliminary, it was upwards of $2 million. And that's hard to justify putting into a,
But we have a liability sitting out there that could be forced on us at some
Yeah.
point by the DNR.
so we try to do all the repair work and keep them satisfied with what we can do. And hopefully that suffices. We do have the opportunity to get the clay we would need at no cost from the Fort Madison landfill. We would just have to pay a contractor to go with an excavator, dig it, load their trucks, and haul it to Keokuk. But that
Which is
is an
still
option that
fairly-
we have.
Still fairly expensive.
We did get prices to do that last year. It was upwards of $50,000 to haul. I can't even remember the tonnage of clay, but it wasn't near the amount we would need for the total project. But the thought was if we could start stockpiling it, then we'll do that. But it was a little bit higher than what we wanted to spend at the time. So we didn't go that route last year.
In order to fund that without doing some type of a bonding, like going out into debt to cover the cost, or using maybe local option sales tax to the infrastructure piece to do that, we just can't cover cash flow with $1 per year increase in the garbage fee. It's a different type of conversation about what we need for revenues.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I believe the gentleman that owns it lives in Ohio now. I think that's who owns the property that bought it off the internet. I don't know if it was 5, 10 years ago, whenever it was, but we would like to get the property in our hands and then we could start the actual post-closure process, but the last that I knew, previous administrator was kind of working on that and the guy wasn't really willing to sell it at a reasonable price, so it's no use to him. You can't do anything with it. It just sits there because it's a landfill, but
Could we actually sell it with all the problems that's
could
on
we
it?
sell it?
With all the problems that are on it?
We don't own it.
We don't own it.
We don't own it, okay.
We need to acquire the property from the gentleman in Ohio that does own it. And then we could put it in
And they
post-closure.
won't sell because of why?
I don't know. I don't know why they bought it, other than they probably saw this 40+ acres for a really cheap price on the internet and bought it.
And are never coming here to see it.
Yeah. No. Yep. From my understanding, when, I believe it was the Glasscocks that originally owned it. And they had I don't know if it was a gentleman's agreement or a actual written agreement, but from what I understand, the city was supposed to get first right of refusal when they ever did sell it, and the gentleman passed away. And I don't know if the kids or the wife or whoever put it up for sale on the internet, and this guy bought it from Ohio. Yeah, and it was our city
No, it's
landfill.
our landfill. This is our responsibility.
Yeah.
It was our landfill. We put our product on it. It is our liability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever the lease agreement said way back when this was active is, I mean, I think perpetually we own it
And-
for, we have it forever.
And this is not atypical. You can go across the state and find where cities had dumps in multiple places. Burlington had them. and
Well, we
had-
did too. We had one at Tumblety Park. We had one out behind sanitation. Anything else on the landfill? All right, Public Works General Account, 001299. We moved all of salary and benefits out of this account, away from the general fund, and then divided that between the perpetual public works accounts, which would be sewer, sanitation, and road use tax.
And really, I wanted,
And we're in the process of, we're gonna move everything we're gonna get rid of this account, hopefully with the following fiscal year.
there's still 30-some thousand in here, and it needs to get moved out too. But you can look historically, this used to have, what, 250,000 for annual expenses back in 2022 if we hadn't moved.
We had 204 last year out of it.
So we're trying to phase it out of the general fund. It doesn't mean that the cost has gone away. It just means we're moving it to other funds
Right.
and trying to support
So we'll
general
have
fund
to,
operations.
we'll have to come up with where to best put these accounts at for the following fiscal year, but we didn't think we really had enough time to try to do that this spring before the budget was due, so. The only increase is professional development on 6240. That takes care of, like, myself, Jason and John come out of that for different requirements. They both have DOT certifications that they need for doing our inspection services. They also get certification for working on our traffic lights, that kind of thing. Those monies come out of there and then the public works conferences and that kind of stuff. That was the only change in that budget, other than removing all the salaries and benefits out of it.
And the ones that you didn't cover, I mean, you kind of covered it under road use tax. We used to have the 230, in general fund, we used to have the 230 and 240 street
Mhm.
lighting and traffic lights and we have it in the current year's budget. And we're zeroing those out and moving them over to road use tax. You can look in the general fund back in 2022. Street lighting was 200,000. In the current year's budget, it's 5,000. We've already moved the majority of these over. Traffic lights, for perspective, back in 2022 was about 100,000. In the current year's budget was 26,000. So this is kind of a trend.
But
The
slowly been
general-
moving it to rut.
Coming up with ways to try to save the general fund and it's been something that's continued to happen. It's continued to be a problem.
Flood wall maintenance, we didn't make any changes to that. The biggest expense out of that is the electric bill, 6371. If you go across historically if you look where it goes over the $15,000, that would be when we've had significant flooding and the pumps run for an extended period of time. That's kind of why we just keep that at 15,000 and we don't really lower it because we don't know what the forecast will be between, now and August on the flood situation of the Mississippi, so. That also that pump station we have an agreement with Roquette. They take care of all the maintenance on that and operations. And we just we take care of the Corps of Engineer inspections. And then just these general housekeeping stuff like the electric bill and that. So we also mow it. The next one would be bulk fuel, 001290. For those of you who are not familiar, our bulk fuel site is out on Carbide Lane, the same piece of property that Animal Control and the Sewer Department are at. We're lowering the 6331, the supply, we're lowering 90,000, just lowering 10,000 to 90,000 to reflect fuel prices. We also dropped the 6380, the miscellaneous service, from 2,000 down to 500. If you can remember, a year and a half or so ago, we replaced the pumps out there, so we have brand new pumps, so that significantly lowered our maintenance and service requirements out there.
So, and as you budget this, the expenditure in here is, the budget for next year is 91,250. The current year, we were at budget 103. We're probably maybe 83,000 that we'll actually spend. We do have an offset. We do receive, how do you build that out?
Annette bills that. So we charge school district, we charge Regional Waste Authority, C-Bus. Trying to think if if there's any other that uses a Waterworks.
And do you charge a cost plus?
I'd have to ask Annette on that, to be honest.
Because, typically it should be a cost plus so that we
Right.
can cover the capital items that are in there too, and then we have some of our own usage that goes through there, or no? Does it all go?
We all city departments use,
and
all
does it-
city vehicles
does
use
it
that.
all get charged out to the
It gets charged out
departments?
to the individual departments. Every department will have a bulk fuel or gas oil line item.
So I have it set up that our fuel revenue would be 90,000, pretty much a wash on it, but that historically we have had a net cost in this. Our bulk fuel, not a tremendous amount, but I can look back and we've had a net cost of 15,000, 2,000. The year that we had the major capital expense out there, we had a $27,000. The current year, we might end up a tad ahead, and we have it budgeted as a net cost of $1,250 for next year. I think looking at how we're doing that formula may be worthwhile to see if we
Yeah.
need to do something for an adjustment to make sure that we're covering all of our costs on it. Well, they're still getting a decent, at a good rate. The
Oh,
reason
yeah.
they come to us is because it's below what you'd go.
It's below what you would go to Hy-Vee or
But,
Casey's and get.
but we need to have enough offset to make sure that we are covering our maintenance costs on it.
We're tax exempt, so we don't. And they are too, like the entities that use it with, I think with the exception of Regional Waste,
The rest of
the
them,
rest
yeah,
of them
they're,
be tax exempt.
and even if they pay the tax, you're able to go through a formula for a rebate on it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Well, they can still get that back if they were paying it at Casey's. You can still go and get a rebate. Our cost is still lower than what that is after the.
Because as a city, we have an account at Hy-Vee also, just in case our pumps do go down. Because, police and fire, most of the rest of the city don't run on the weekends, but they're running 24/7. So if our pumps are down, they have to get gas. So we do have an account at Hy-Vee that they just direct bill the city if that were to happen. I don't know if they charge us taxes on the direct billing. It doesn't happen very often. Where we at here? Ferrisville building. That's the building that we own down on the Roquette property on the riverfront. The only expense we have, we keep $1,000 in there for maintenance if we need, but that's where like the majority of the City of Christmas is stored, and Kathy's house is down there still. That's with Miller bought home from over on Third that was disassembled, but that's down there in that building. And then the other expenses are insurance cost. We budgeted 2,500. Looks like it went up a little bit.
It was 2140 for this year.
Yeah. Current year was 2,140. I don't know how it came about that we owned it. Yeah. Since, I don't know if it's when Ferrisville closed, if we took it over or. So yeah, it's all just storage now. I would say for the City of Christmas, it is, yeah, yeah. Not, right. No, it's just like a couple feet outside the building footprint, I think. Moving on to the swimming pool. 001-445. There's only just one line item change, 6373. Again, is our telephone service from 500 to 750. That 3,741 was part of that settlement that came out of every one of our buildings that had a CenturyLink service. Or was it Windstream, CenturyLink? They're the same company. Is there any questions on the pool? We do have a kind of an end of life we've been talking about for the last couple of years, which is getting it repainted. That's kind of a topic of where we would pull funding from to do that, but
The community foundation application,
we can do a community foundation
would
application.
that be a potential good? I think that's one of the
So yeah,
sources.
but
to
you
be
could
going
do
up.
a community foundation, you could do a CERC fund application for a big project.
What's that?
Community fund has substantial money coming into it. There's a north wing and a south wing.
So that's one that, and I know that you been encouraging a little bit about projects that this would be an opportune time to be getting those.
I think their
requests in.
grant, it opens they have a grant meeting coming up real quick. Yeah, in February, yeah. So I think I'm going to that next
So
February, but
this would be a good project to have on there. And even if it ended up, I don't know what the match requirements are on that.
I don't.
Okay. Okay.
Any other questions on the pool?
Contract. How's the contract work with the Y for operation of this?
So the contract with the Y, after the initial signing, it's good for 5 years. It was signed again in 2024. So we're still within the
We're in the
current contract.
first, I think this is the first year of the the 5-year period.
Yeah.
There's a 1-year initial period and then a 5-year period.
Yep. And so it's opened up to changes if we would like to make changes or the Y would like to make changes, that's open. Or they can open it back up. Well, this budget right here, it cost us $125,000.
Overall for the full
Overall.
operation, the contract with the Y is built on, there's a base component for funding, and I don't know if the mayor remembers this off the top of his head, because I don't remember all the details. You want to go through that? Because it's in the where you see it on the expenditures is in 6499 contract. work.
Yep.
The way, the Y was awarded a managerial fee to manage it. And then the city said they would cover any losses up to a certain amount. And if the Y didn't run losses, I think the amount was like $35,000 in losses for personnel and minor expenses, not major expenses. And then if the losses were under $35,000, say they were $25,000, so the city saved $10,000 there. The Y and the city would share in those savings. So I think the Y got 20.
I think it's
If
25.
I think it was about-
if it was $10,000, I think the Y got $25,000.
I think it was a hair over 26,000.
So it was an incentive for the, to keep the expenses as low, and then they'd share in the savings. So, the Y, with that contract, the Y assumed all the personnel costs, all the workers' comp, all the management, of those employees. And it's somewhere north of 20 employees. Except it goes back against the expenses. So, yeah.
So
Yeah,
if we were to do a change in the fees, that we set the fees for out there, but they're collecting it, and it's part of what gets the true up on the net cost of operation is used to figure out where you end up having to do a final payment to the Y. It would, if we did a fee increase, it would, as long as it didn't impact the usage, it should net out to a reduced cost to us, but a portion, as I mentioned.
I know it's not going to be a money. It never designed. I was just wondering what it's costing us for you.
Well, 125,000 is the budget, and that's not atypical either. You can go to, I think West Burlington's is more like, the last I talked to them was closer to 200,000.
Well,
And the 125,000 isn't it's not atypical.
The daily user fee probably should go up, and the party rental fee probably should go up. I mean, there is some.
we are the lowest in the area with our daily rates.
And there is some headroom based on what he's saying, there's some headroom to increase that. I've long thought that party rental fee needs to go up. Frankly, you can go out there and rent that as a party, have a private party, and that's less cost per person than it is if you take that same number of people during the day. And it just makes no sense.
Mark, is anybody monitoring the attendance year to year?
Yes, I mean, there's a admission system, and and that's sent to the city as far as here's the admissions. That's updated throughout the year.
Has that basically stayed the same year to year, or do you see a decrease in admissions, or?
I couldn't tell you, Tyler, off the top of my head, truthfully.
And the numbers that I saw from you didn't have anything about admissions. It was more about.
Their revenue or the sheet they send, yeah. It was just a
Just the
accounting.
revenue.
Well, you can
You could
figure
probably
that,
figure
you
it-
can figure that off the daily, whatever your daily use is and whatever your season passes are, so.
It stays pretty
It's-
busy.
It's plenty busy, and I'm glad I'm the mayor and not the city pool manager.
You don't want to do both this year?
No.
You sure? Any other questions on the swimming pool?
I mean, my comment, I have been through the initial negotiations on this from the Y side when, up in Burlington, when we did it. Actually, West Burlington did it with the Y there, and I don't think they do it anymore. But when they were doing that, West Burlington didn't necessarily save any net dollars, but they had this essentially the same cash expenditure going to the Y instead of themselves, but they lost all of the headache of doing all the hiring and training and put it with the Y. And it was still a benefit to the Y because it was spreading their fixed cost on a full-time swimming pool manager across a larger spectrum of duties.
Oh, Southeast Iowa Development Center. It's a 303,758. 6320. We did a $2,000 increase for our grounds, buildings, maintenance, repair. We're at 6,500-ish right now. That's just kind of for projected costs next year. We increased the utilities to 6371, gas and electric. We increased from 105 to 125,000, and that's just rates have went up, and that's our projected cost for next year, what we're looking at.
And even though we lost a client out there, it doesn't impact the rates.
Not a whole, I mean, not enough anyways.
The facility is not designed to section off. The whole facility is being heated
When-
and cooled
A
regardless.
couple of years ago, when he was actually running 20 or 30 dryers all the time, it did affect our electricity, but the last year to year and a half, he was pretty well operating at bare bones, so it didn't do a whole lot with our utility bill. If you see that a couple years ago, we
was
spent,
last year.
we spent $135,000. But rates have increased significantly. in
Well,
the
it's,
last-
and it's, the problem with that facility is that the base cost on it, because of the size of the transformer, it's not the usage that is the driver on what the electric cost is out there. It's not efficient for what's going on there. The load on it doesn't justify what it has
Just
for.
a lot of waste. Wasted energy. They had a 5-year lease, and I believe they're 2 years into it.
I was
I'd have
thinking
to
it was
check.
28, but I'm not positive. And
So they have 3 years left then.
and at the same time, if there was something that we were making a decision that we had to go a different direction, we have the ability to provide, I think it's a 60-day notice, maybe it's a
Yeah,
90.
either 60 or 90 day out for both of us, so. Oh, sure, I did an insurance walkthrough of all of our buildings in the summer or
It was a few
spring.
weeks ago.
Yeah, and we asked them to lower our insurance. They had a ridiculous amount on that. I can't remember if it was like 12.5 million of coverage or something like that, but we basically would just like it covered what it would cost to knock it down if something happened, because
That's what we would
We're
do.
not gonna rebuild the thing.
Well, yeah, and part of what, I mean, right now, I mean, I'm trying to move forward with how we're operating it. It's not ideal. We are looking at alternative uses. Again, we're looking at alternative uses that would be different from even as a office space. But having that occur is only going to happen if you can get enough, find someone, a prospective entity to have it, and enough financial resources to go into it with the right idea that makes it cost justifiable. There are very few of those out there, but we do have somebody who has an interest potentially in the property, but it has to get structured correctly. And that's one that we're working with state and federal sources to try to figure out if we can get a package together that is justifiable. If we're not able to do that, I'm probably coming to you with a recommendation at some point. How do you mothball it? But
Yeah.
I think that on that side, you are probably talking about a demo on it. I mean, I don't know that's a significant cost for us that we would have sunk into it.
That's a loan payment. We
That,
paid it off.
when they did the last remodel that was done,
It's paid off.
paid off.
But in further discussion, but with the electric and gas usage, $125,000, just that alone. We have one tenant there. What is that tenant paying?
90.
90,000 a year.
I mean, I don't expect them to pay for it all.
Now, we make up for things in volume. No.
It's 90,000 a year?
Roquette's lease is, yes.
That was previously that was split between us and Keokuk Economic Development Corp.
Yes.
And part of that was they had done
They floated that note originally.
they did the note for the last remodel for Roquette's purposes. They covered the cash, and then we provided them with a portion of the cash for it. We took over the remaining principal in that note, and that's why you see that 230,000 in there, paid it off. And since they don't have the debt outstanding, we get all of the Roquette revenue.
But technically, so a 5-year lease is $450,000. And we spent $350 a month for their use, so we get $100,000 out of it.
Yep, that was the.
We pay the electric bill.
That was the agreement that was made whenever that was done.
Yeah, I was.
I would just like to say, with all due respect to everybody working on this, I heard the same things being said 2.5 years when I started on council. Well, we're working on things. We got people might be interested. We got things it's only gotten worse since then. And I would just like to emphasize the value of time. And the sooner we take action on this, the better. Because, since I started, it's only gotten worse. With all due respect. Thank you.
I agree, Tyler.
I do. It's definitely a headache for the city.
Outside of the fact that we do have somebody currently who's at least interested in a potential project,
Yeah.
and they are a viable person to work on a project, I would like to at least give that legs to see if it can come to fruition.
That would be best case scenario for us.
I don't know how optimistic I am. I mean, we can't do that without having other sources that we're attaching with that. It's not doable, but we do at least have the interest in looking at it from from both the state and federal side, so.
Anything else on the development center? The Verity Museum. The only thing that we're looking at so it's got a 100-year anniversary coming up in 2027, I believe. It's gonna cost, to finish the repairs we've been doing down there. We had ARPA funds originally to do a lot of these repairs. We've expended those. Roughly another $40,000 to finish the maintenance, let's say maintenance, repair work, painting and stuff on the paddle wheel on the outside of the boat. We'd like to do that before the 100-year celebration. We currently have $8,325 in grant funding towards that. I think we're gonna look at applying with maybe Community Foundation or to get some other grants this upcoming year to hopefully offset that cost. I mean, this is ultimately up to the council whether we want to spend the money to do that down there.
Any
So-
local match that we have, is set up to be covered out of local option sales tax, the infrastructure portion, but
I mean, that's also hotel motel eligible too, so I mean,
well, all of, the problem with any of these sources is that
at least
there
we'd
are
be
other
using it.
places that can be used.
Yeah,
So if
at least
we're
we'd be
able
using it
to,
for ourselves.
if we're able to maybe see that as an application to that other source, that,
Yeah.
I think that seems like that would be the right type of thing too.
Could this
out of the Community
potentially be
Foundation.
another community grant or CERC
Yeah.
application?
Yep. I don't think any of us have a good idea on when the circuit board's gonna start accepting applications for grants, but the Community Foundation, we'll definitely we'll submit it through them.
Well, we did too, the Keokuk Parks Foundation did apply for a grant from the Keokuk community,
Mhm.
and we did not get it, but we were advised to turn around and come back after February 1st.
Yeah, so they
So-
have a lot bigger pool of money coming in this year that they're gonna be dispersing also, so that hopefully will help us.
Yeah, and
Somehow I
they advised us to come back right after February 1st.
Somehow I doubt that we get everything funded that we would like to get funded, but you think maybe?
It never hurts to ask. I know that right now, I think that they're seeing more funds available and they're wanting to make sure that they're impactful.
I don't know that you want my signature on the paperwork, though. But, I mean,
Somebody else can
my
sign.
wife works for the
Yeah,
Community
somebody else
Foundation,
can
so
sign in your place.
we'll let Mark sign them.
It could be a situation maybe that the Keokuk Parks Foundation
Yeah.
applies again.
And I'm fine with that. I mean, they've already.
We already have the
They already
paperwork.
have the write-up and everything that we could just resubmit on that.
One of the, I guess, and going along with grant applications, one of the things that had come up, people who aren't in the room now, I guess, I don't think that anyone, were you on the Pocket Park, this email chain this last?
Yes.
That is another project that is potentially something that can be funded through a couple of different sources. And my only concern on it I didn't respond on that email chain because there's people who are very interested in seeing something like that happen. When we're in a spot where we're having difficulty covering operational costs, I don't want to take on a project that, even if it's grant funded, is creating an additional operational cost.
Bob already mows that lot anyways.
No. You like mowing that lot? But anyway, part of it, what I want to bring up is that not every project is equal.
Yep.
And my concern is making sure that as we do projects that,
I believe
It
that
makes
Pocket
sense that we
Park
can
is something
cover it.
that regional planning's working on.
yeah, they are.
I just want to throw this out there too, while we're talking about Community Foundation grants. I have been philosophically opposed to entities like the city or the schools applying for grant funding. Cities and schools have a taxing authority where they can take all the needs of all these citizens, tax for them and pay for them. Groups, all the nonprofits rely on fundraising. And those grants represent fundraising for those groups. And so it's a little bit different when the city needs to paint its pool. The city ought to be paying for the pool to be painted. And nonprofits that are and there are a number of them, and we're talking about eliminating a number of the support in our budget for those nonprofits. I just am philosophically opposed to the city applying for those grant funds.
We want to go through the capital projects list since we got it up here. I think we've mentioned most all of them, but we have the one for the airport at
Just a comment on, I get the mayor's frustration that cities are going after funding like this. Burlington had a pool for 50-some years. They don't have the funds to make it work. As things have happened with property tax allocations at a statewide level, and I think that everybody needs to kind of understand this. The change in the funding formulas that have gone on have been designed to crimp the ability of cities to do things, especially when you are in an area that's seen historical taxable valuation growth. The property tax value that is available for collecting taxes off grow at like 0.4% a year. What's our biggest expenditure in the general fund? General fund's about $10 million. You got a payroll sheet that has it by breakdown of cost by department. What's the total for the general fund?
4.6.
What's with benefits? Is it north of 7 million?
It's a little bit north of 7 million.
Over
Right at 7 million.
70% of our general fund is payroll. What is our contract that that we're 2 years into? What was our raise in that contract for the current year?
So it was a 5.54.
Yeah, so last year's raise was 5%,
This
this
year-
year's raise is 5%, and the budget that we're working on is 4%. And you've got an average increase in property valuation available to cover this cost, 70% of our cost being this thing of 0.4%, offsetting 5% increase. The math does not work. The whole formula is set to squeeze out anything that is not essential. These projects that I think that used to be, you'd think of traditionally being something that the cities can afford to cover, they're becoming more difficult to do, less and less likely to be able to fund. They're the kinds of things, these are the things that make a community healthy and whole, but we've got a broken system that's not wanting us to fund it any longer. And go ahead, Gary. Gary sees this a little bit too. And
I don't want to interject with, I love hearing what the back and forth, and to be honest with you, I haven't done that a lot in the past, but to give you an idea of some of the things you can do that may not be a direct impact, but you can actually work also with the North and South Lee County Charitable Fund. If there's a point project that is kind of a one-time over a decade type expense, for instance, we went and asked for the health department, we asked for them to help us with a fundraiser. Would they be able to do something like that? And they committed to us that we could count on them for $500,000. To date, they've come in at over $750,000.
And that was not money from the community fund.
That
was raised specifically for that project.
Exactly. So I guess what I'm getting at, if you think about this is a resource that you have in Lee County, I pay particular attention to, and this sounds wild, but when I hear the pool, how many public pools are there in Lee County? 3. Well, Madison has one. It's had issues I've seen in the paper. Keokuk's got one. I'm hearing the discussion today. Donaldson has one. We recently helped support Donaldson at the county level for rebuilding their pool house. They came to us as part of a CAT grant, a community and tourism grant from the state level that they were able to utilize. Part of a CAT grant requires the city as well as the county to put either a matching by work performed or by a cash donation, something for that to be able to get that CAT grant. There are significant grants out there. At the county level, when I came onto the board, I was able to convince the board at that time, and I'm not suggesting you do this, you'd have to look at it and see if it's something you want to do. But we hired a grant manager. We were able to do that half funded through the county and half funded through ARPA funds. The county, once those ARPA funds ran out, decided to fully fund the grant manager as a new hire, because what we're seeing is that grant manager focused our efforts on grants and is actively applying for federal, state, local grants in the area, and it focused our grants and he manages those grants. And then he sees the timeframes that come up and he's able to get those. And then we saw significant help to our budget in multiple departments, whether that be for police equipment, emergency equipment, ambulance equipment, and also for our efforts in different buildings.
you're
and things
fine.
like that. But I just throw that out there.
Thank you.
And sorry to get off on a tangent, but
It's all right.
I do want to talk about, my tangent, because I took us off a tangent of dealing with that stuff, but it is a funding issue that's come up, and it's part of the overall discussion that's going on at a statewide level, and why we brought that up a little bit at the council meeting the other night. This is what's happened to the formula for funding cities, counties, schools, it's all broken. And actually the solution that's being brought forward, I think, is just another step along the brokenness of it, but.
Well, I think that, I think we have to look at what projects need to be done and where we need to get the money, but I also think that, and the swimming pool is a great example. Where the money comes from, whether it comes from the state, which isn't going to give us the money, or the federal that's not going to give us the money, or another fund that we take it from, we have to look at the different things. For example, the swimming pool provides entertainment for a huge amount of people. And we live in a very poverty community where people don't have large incomes. They can't put pools in their own yard. That is something that we should provide and make sure it's safe, whether, and we all know that a swimming pool is never a profit, never. I don't know anybody that has one that's a profit, but that's an example. I'm not saying it's the only thing, but that's an example of something that we can provide our community. And I'm not saying people from outside of here or tourism or anything. We provide that for our community. It's the same thing with our citywide cleanups. We provide that for our community, and those are things that we need to try to provide no matter where we ask for the money from. But we also need to remember that everybody's going to be begging for money this year because of the way things have happened. And so we have to do the top priorities. But we also have to remember that we have to take care of our community first and then worry about outside of here. And I know tourism is a huge thing, but we also have to remember that we got to build us first. And if it means asking from Keokuk Community, Area Community Foundation for the swimming pool money, then that's what it means.
We'll do capitals now, or wages, or I don't know where we're at. Jim gave me extra sheets this morning that I didn't have yesterday, so.
We already kind of went through those.
Huh?
Those aren't yours.
These aren't?
We kind of covered those. Outside, you can talk about what your staffing is by department and what you're doing with are you making any changes or?
Staffing wise?
Yeah.
No, we're not. We're looking at, for sure, run one retirement in the upcoming fiscal year, possibly 3. That would be 2 out of the sewer department and 1 out of the street department. That's kind of where we're at staffing wise. Currently, we have 1 employee out of the cemetery department that is deployed overseas. We have his position filled with a temporary worker. That job will be open to him when he comes home, kind of the May time period. And the agreement that we have with that temporary worker, he came to us from the National Cemetery. He would like to work with the city permanently, so we put together a letter with him that kind of takes care of our next hiring need per retirement, that he would be based on obviously his performance and requirements, that he would be the next in line for a full-time hireman at the city in that department. But
I know that Brian, you have a little bit of a concern with that whole process with what we did with the hiring freeze.
yeah, I mean, this will be way after September, so we'll have plenty of time to revisit that. My retirement, the earliest would be next January, so. Staffing levels, parks 2, cemetery 2. I think you can kind of see I mean, it says 2.25, but you got a quarter of Bob's salary that comes out of those. Bridge department is 2. Sanitation is 6 employees. Sewer is 7. I'm missing. Street department has 8 3/4 of salary taken out, but that's not representative of actual street department employees. There's 6. So that's kind of where we're at. Total and with the bargaining side employees, Public Works has 25. And then 7 non or salaried employees outside of that.
And going through again, when I was doing the figures for that, and that sheet that you have, the personnel by department, and comparing to what it was in 2024, I think the only position that's different was Amy Barnes, I think was part of that formula at that point. Is that correct?
Yeah, she would have been.
Amy Barnes. Her position was split between a lot of these categories, some in the general fund, like maybe 1/4 of an employee. And
She
then,
did well
and then she was
requisitions for
split
every
between
department.
these other utility funds as well. But otherwise, the staffing here is the same as it's been since then.
Well, I guess the earliest replacement Public Works would have to be Annette. That would be in October. But that's City Hall staffing.
So if you look at where Annette's pay comes from, it's 17% of a person is out of
Just
planning and zoning, and
Yeah, 7, then she's out of road use tax, sanitation, and sewer.
yeah, so very little of her salary is actually general fund.
And if you look at Public Works as a whole, departmental wise, you have the airport, parks, and cemetery that come out of the general fund. Parks and cemetery are not really classified under Public Works, but they're ran through Public Works. All the other departments come from our fees that we collect and road use tax.
Anything else?
Just one concern that Carrie had, our insurance agent for the city, is he said our workman's comp is getting really high.
Okay.
And he said years ago, we had, here we're hoping to hire him, so don't get me wrong here, but he said at one time, we had a person that would go around and talk to the different groups
Right?
and successfully got our workman's comp really down. One of the reasons we went to the automatic.
It's actually, since I've been here, our workman comp's lowered.
Okay.
We meet with them, Celeste and I meet with them annually,
I don't know why he told me that then. That's,
but it went down significantly like the second year I was here because I think people fall off every 3 or 5 years?
yeah, it's 3 year. I think it's like 4 altogether, but it's like a 3
And we
year
had
thing.
quite a few people that had claims had fallen off in the last couple of
Okay.
years.
Yeah, I don't know why he said that to me, but that was.
But so to answer your question, we do have monthly safety meetings. They're held at City Hall. The department, quarterly. And I think it's the working foremans come to those meetings. I don't know why, but I was kind of asked that the department heads didn't attend because they wanted more of an open line of communication from the actual guys out with, the feet on the street, so to say, to have that communication with HR during those meetings. If there is any safety issues that they encounter. But we do those. And then we do we do monthly training with SEC on, every month there'll be a different topic, like slip, trip and falls, or trench safety, or stuff like that we do monthly.
Okay.
with
I
the
think it's just
departments.
something we'll have to look at and see what he's talking about, because maybe.
It could very well have went up like from last year to this year, because I haven't seen insurance rates, but Celeste probably has.
Thank you.
That's through ICAP though, right? Or is it separate? IWCA. The only other sheet I have is the capital projects one, but we kind of
Did
touched.
anyone
it.
have any questions on capital projects now that after he's gone through the line items? Kind of a summary of what he'd already covered
Yeah.
in his departmental stuff. We're
That's
not
it.
looking to do any, I mean, we are looking to do a geo bond, but again, the whole idea is to set it up as being paid within the year, borrow the money like in July, pay it off in the spring, use local option sales tax that's designed for property tax relief to make that debt service payment rather than the debt service levy.
Then the visible projects we'll be doing, Bel Air will be coming up this spring, and then South 10th Street will be coming up this spring for street projects. And then we'll have some further discussion, as soon as the mayor gets committees put together. We'll have, probably have some street committee meetings on where to best utilize that extra money we're putting into our road repair fund for some mill and fills and stuff like that out of the rut budget. It's in the design phase like right now. Hopefully if everything falls in line, I'd like to bid in early spring, March-ish. Hopefully both of them projects, hopefully bid in March, April. Ideally, I'd like to have it done before school starts, but that's gonna push them guys really hard, but.
Since you brought up committees too, I haven't heard from everybody on requests for committees, so email.
Did you send something out?
Email went out to everybody's city email, so, and I don't know if you've,
I just got on it.
I was gonna say, I don't know if everybody can get on their city email yet,
I just did. so-
but I do want to, I'll get those right out here once we get everybody, or I'll move forward without hearing from everybody.
Got a question? Okay. Has everyone taken the required training yet?
Yep.
Celeste? So if you haven't gotten it, as a reminder, all newly elected are required to, within what, 90 days? So we still have some time to get it done, to do the open meetings training.
They said that it would take about 3 weeks to get it
The
after
certificate.
you do it.
The certificate. And then, and Celeste will need a copy of that, and we need to try to keep a copy, and you're gonna wanna, anyone who's doing that training is probably gonna wanna keep a copy of that sheet too, so if you go and do a board somewhere else, and they're gonna wanna know that you've gotten the training in.
They email that out to you right away. Once you take it, they'll email you the certificate or,
Depending on.
okay.
They said up to 3 weeks.
The MLA, the league got it right out within 2 days.
So I did hand out a couple of different sheets. You got one that had the blue on it. This is the base worksheet that they use for us to play around with to look at what property taxes are gonna look like based off of valuations. Our valuation this year, taxable valuation went up. What was eligible for taxable valuation went up 4%. That's, as I said, it was been 0.4%, the average, so it was a pretty good size increase, but they cap us at 2% increase, so we only get to see 2% for the year. And that's where, when, again, watching the details of a governor's proposal where it goes from every 2 to every 3 years for a revaluation, the spike years you'll have fewer spike years and you'll get capped on all of those spikes. So you're going to end up with, I think it's going to hide more valuation away from ever being taxable for us, and that's the whole design of it. But it will make it harder for us long-term to keep up with things. This really was a fairly good, for taxable purpose valuation to spread costs across. This was a good year for us for trying to develop numbers. But at 2%, that's still less than what our 4% salary increase is. So for perspective, we're still falling behind. Our base levy is, this form has the property valuations up near the top. It breaks it out between what's taxable, not taxable, what's included in utilities, what's not. We don't get to tax utilities, so wonderful. They pay us a franchise fee instead. Our base levy is $8.20. We are above the state mandated or state levy right now. The base levy on a statewide basis is $8.10. The reason we are above that is they consolidated several levies a few years ago, took away our flexibility, and then are forcing us to go from having those various levies that we were able to do the 810 plus all of them over a period of years. I think 2028 or 2029 is the last year where we have to be down to the 810 number. So they're forcing us to lose property taxes. And this is one of the levies that came down from, I think, 838 because of I think partially because we had such good valuation growth finally this year. But a couple of areas that we will see some significant difference in what our levy is. Well, one of the things you can see here, we have the $8,500 levy for transit that we provide to CBus. There's $433,000 in here for collections that would be to cover the cost of work comp, general liability insurance, all those types of insurance costs that occur in the general fund. There is then some special revenue levies that we use to cover employee benefits. Our overall levy total for the total employee benefits levies for this next year, I'm recommending it go to that $7.10. That is awful high. Last year it was over $9 so for us, so it is significantly lower. I think I can't remember what the sheet showed for an average community, but I want to say it's more in the $5 range, what our comparable cities were for employee benefits levy. And I would like to see it potentially come down to that, but I want it to stair step down. We have our employee benefits category we have funds on hand in that category of about $1 million, and we got to gradually work it down, and as we get it worked down, transition over to probably using a local option sales tax, the property tax relief to offset a portion of the employee benefits levy, but it needs to be stair-stepped in over a period of years to make sure we don't have any jumps up and down. I'd like to see a managed decline in that if we can over the next couple of years. And then we have a debt service levy. It's $3 and a portion of a cent. Last year it was $7.50. So we reduced that, we're reducing that levy by $4.50. We were able to do that by what we did with sewer rates. We finally did an increase in the residential it's budgeted to have that a 10% increase occur, or 7%, isn't it? This next July, and then the subsequent July, another 7%. Just designed to try to get the sewer department to where it can afford to cover at least a portion of its debt instead of relying on a debt service levy. This levy, I've mentioned it before, but for those who hadn't been a part of it, our levy on debt service spiked after ADM left the community. We lost half of the loading to the sewer plant. We lost at least 30% of our revenue when the facility left our community. And the sewer department was no longer able to cover its debt service. Just to try to get by, the decision one of the decisions that we used was to cover that with the debt service levy. And it put us, we went through a period of time there, and when we were sitting in that thing yesterday, a discussion with the legislators, and talking about it going up 60%, a large part of it was this, dealing with this issue. And that's part of why we're looking to this next year, as we got that sewer revenue in line, trying to transition our employee benefits lower. We're looking to lower the current year property tax levy is $26.25. This is lowering for next year to $19.68. It's almost a 25% decrease over what the current year's levy is. I know that there's at least one property, there's probably a few major property holders in the community that's well into the six-figure difference in what their property taxes are going to be. That's certainly not my checkbook, but that is it's going to be more the commercial industrial type property owners that could see that kind of a decrease in their tax levy as a result of what we're proposing for next year. These things are not really tied to what's going on in the general fund. We're still going to transfer over the general fund from the employee benefits levy the same amount we could otherwise, what we did last year, just enough to cover what our employee benefit costs were. But this is a major benefit for what's going on in the community, and I think it's to me, being able to see the graph and look at rates that were going significantly higher over the last few years on that graph, and then see it have an elbow down is a big deal. But that won't change the discussion in the community for a few years. I mean, people won't even see it initially till next year's pocketbook, and you don't start changing your thought process on what a community is overnight. Hopefully this is something that we can continue and maintain at a lower level. When I had presented the numbers for the property tax askings for the other communities across the state, the population 7,500 to 12,500, this still has us as the highest property tax asking of that group. But now we're not 30% higher than everyone else. We're just on the higher end of the range. So it's not the full end. I'd like to see it be able to come down a little bit more, but that's baby steps. Let's get there. Any questions on that?
I just have, this is kind of off subject a little bit, but like with the sewer, and we talked about losing 40 to 50% of our revenue by ADM closing, which we knew that was going to be a crisis. It is with our water company too. But my question is, staffing wise, how does that affect staffing when you lose half of your volume?
Well, it doesn't impact the needs for staffing. The physical infrastructure is the same as it was before.
Doug, do you mean treatment plant staffing or maintenance staffing? There's two
I guess a
different.
treatment plant, I mean, it doesn't really change anything.
It doesn't.
I mean, that would be more of a Tom Wells question next week. But I
The
don't think
only
it
thing
does.
that really changes is your plant capacity. The operation and maintenance of it is the same. You just have a larger capacity left in the plant. that plant capacity down there, I think the maximum that can run through that is 7.5 million gallons a day. I think the peak flow during a rain event is like 15 million gallons a day, which is where our combined sewer overflows is a major issue. I think our average plant usage now on a dry weather day is 1.2 million gallons a day. And I think wet weather I think the average wet weather is 5.5 million gallons a day. Million gallons a day, yeah. And I'm doing those off the top of my head. I'm hoping I'm right. But it's pretty close. But we were a lot closer to using the capacity of our plant. You can ask Tom about that next week, but right now we're able to take off portions of the plant, take it offline and just rotate between portions of the plant, but that doesn't change the staff it takes to run it. Then I wanted to hand out. Oops, give me-
Yeah, it added. Yeah, because we were using those bugs. Yep. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, it was a hell of a deal.
All right, I did want to just have a discussion about,
That makes sense. Yeah.
especially for folks who haven't dealt with our finances. This wasn't out of the council packet from Thursday. Every month, Celeste puts together a treasurer's report, gives the beginning balance, revenues in, revenues out, ending balance by fund. It's on the consent agenda, so we don't really do a lot of discussion on it. But we do focus most of our discussion on the general fund. It's the primary fund that the base operations goes through. Everything else is more of a set aside for one purpose or another. We have $20 million of cash on hand, but it's not all available to fund operations. Our general fund has just shy of $3 million. It began the year at $4 million. But going through some of these park maintenance improvement, we've had some donations for parks. I think the restricted amount on that, something like $90,000, I think. I don't know if you, and that tracks that. But anything above that restricted amount, whatever I think it's the 90,000 figure, is available to do some different projects. And I think the recent one that you were working on, Brian, was at the roof at the Tolme Park. And I don't know if that's even come out of this yet. I'm not sure.
Probably not. I haven't gotten an invoice to expense anything, so.
Because I think you were looking to try not to get into the principal.
We rolled it. It's the Tolme fund.
Oh, okay.
I think that's.
I'm in a separate fund,
Yeah,
okay.
that's a separate funding mechanism. But we did not get into the principal. We had like $24,000 in interest we can use, and we took 20 out and rolled the rest back over into the CD.
Okay. Police asset fund forfeiture. I mean, that was one that we just created just to make sure that any asset we don't have a tremendous amount of asset forfeiture revenues, but we have to just, Seth has to ensure that he's spending it on eligible projects. And I think he was budgeting to maybe use $1,000 of that this year. I don't know why we have public works equipment for $12,800, but that is available to spend on public works equipment. And maybe someone has a history of if it had an intended use. Road use tax specifically for roads, so $1.7 million that we can't touch. Employee benefits, that's a levy that we use to cover employee benefits. It can only be used for one purpose. And that's, again, when we're looking to try to work down the cash balance that's in it. We came into the year with about $1 million. And we'll try to work over the course of the next 3 to 4 years that down closer to where it's an in and an out. Emergency levy is a fund that we used to be able to, you used to be able to have a levy that was called the emergency levy and fund projects out of that. The ability to do that went away. That money actually is available to do something. My thought is that really, if you have a flood event or a derecho event, would be a good source to have on hand. It may actually, depending on how the budget discussions go this year and what the decisions that are made and whether you're having to transition in something such as a franchise fee that can't be implemented for the first 9 months of the year, used to offset some of the loss with that in mind. Sales tax, local option sales tax. We have about a $1.5 million carryover into the current year. We're going to work that down slowly. This next year, budgeted revenues are 1.6 million, maybe 1.650 million. We're budgeting to use about 1.7 million. Not using a lot, but just trying. We have been behind, not using what our collections have been, and we're going to start allocating out a little bit more. But given that I don't have a specific project in mind that this needs to go towards. We don't have a 5-year capital plan that needs to get developed. It makes kind of sense to hold off distributing a larger portion until we really know what a specific identified need is for it. Tax increment financing can only be used on eligible projects. It's primarily what we've used it for has been the CSO work that's gone on over time. We've used it on some street projects. I think this last bond issue was set up as when you borrowed $5 million last spring was set up as being TIF eligible for at least a portion, I think for the street portion of it, and is set for repayments to be made out of there. Again, that was a debt service issue that no principal payments for the first 10 years. There is a cash balance in there. I think coming into the year it was, because the current balance reflects the tax collections from the first half of the year, and we don't make principal payments until the second half. But we have the ability to fund a project out of here. Now, my thought process on it is if something has to come up with the SID Center and we have to figure out a way to deal with that, I want to have the flexibility there to have the council consider using the funding to help make whatever the successful outcome is, or whether it's successful or not. I guess that's all in the eye of the beholder, but get it out of our hands at some point, the long and short. Regardless, it can only be used for a fairly strict set of purposes. You can't just make a transfer out of it and over the general fund. You have to establish a debt that's authorized for the use of TIF funds to cover. Economic development came into the year with a couple $100,000. When we're in the middle of the year, in the middle of a couple of different projects, I don't know where we're going to end up on that, because we have one major project, a CDBG rehab housing project that had a local match, and just the cash flows in and out. I don't know where we're going to true up at the end of the year, and I hesitate to get too far down on a balance on it until those are closed out. Library trust is for the library. Same thing, Grand Theater is for the Grand Theater. Swimming pool, there you can paint the swimming pool for $1,000, right? Debt service has to be used for debt service payments. So that 1.1 million. Capital improvement projects, that is the street bond money that we had, actually portions of the last two street bonds at $4 million. And will be used up with the projects that you've already gotten started. The Bel Air, 10th Street, and Timea will pretty much eat up that full balance, and I'm concerned that we don't have quite enough to cover them all. 303, the CAP Southeast Iowa, I don't even know what that. Oh, Sid Center. We came into the year with a we're sitting at is that right? Negative 300,000? Yeah. So that's oh, we did half of the transfers. We didn't do the whole transfer. So but that's what that is. Brownfield site. I think this project is actually probably going to cost us some money. It's designed to be a fully reimbursed federal grant. We've had 3 different portions of it. Like 2 million, 4 million, 2 million overall in that neighborhood. There's some groundwater monitoring that I need to find out what's going on with whether all of that gets covered, and I think it's the portion of those costs, it's more for getting the land into the land recycling program that might not be grant eligible. So on the back end, I think we have to know that there might be some city costs associated with this as we try to close it out. Not an 8 million type deal, but there is going to probably be some cost to get that back to where it's redevelopable and usable again. Perpetual care cemetery. We do not have enough money in that perpetual care fund to be reflective of what a cemetery is. Really should be more like $3 million. And I don't know what the rate structure was set up originally and how that's gone, but given the size of the facility and what goes on there, your perpetual care is designed to try to cover your operational costs, and we do not do it. The 50,000 does not raise enough revenue off of it to touch the $300,000 annual costs that we have out at the cemetery.
We will be coming to council with rate increase proposal for the cemetery here in the next month or so.
But it won't raise $1 million.
No, we can't increase it that much at one time.
It'll raise more like an additional $1,000 to $2,000 in the fund, because we don't sell a tremendous amount of lots per year now. It's pretty full. The next funds, the 610, 611, 612, 613, 614, 617, those are all sewer revenue funds. The base operational fund is out of the 610. We have some different balances in the columns below it. We had originally borrowed money back in 22 for a belt press to be added down at the sewer plant. That never materialized because it was specifically for ADM. And with them leaving the community, we didn't need to do it. Tom is working off that balance with several of his projects, and on the capital sheet that I gave to you, the bottom there where the WPC is. He's got one, the primary clarifier turntable that will come out of that this next year. I put a couple in there, the replace 2 circulation pumps and the new gas detection for buildings. Those are unbudgeted projects, but they're items that need to get done down at the plant, and we need to get that money spent. Technically, it should have been spent by now, but we need to get that spent as quickly as we can because we borrowed it for a specific purpose, and they don't like it when you don't spend your money. But the other funds in there, in in the other ones that, I mean, that's in the 611, that water improve, the WPC improvement reserve. The other ones, the 613, 614, 617 are $1.3 million or so. I'm looking as Michael tries to get some improvements within the system, the hidden things that you just don't see, the lift stations and the sewer mainline repairs or rehabs, whatever they are, use that to have some grant match on a couple of different separate projects over the next 3 to 5 years. But it has to be used out in the sewer. It can't just be used somewhere else. The solid waste does not have enough cash in it to do much of anything. $250,000 when you're running an operation that's 1.1 million does not set you up well for doing your equipment replacement when you're dealing with trucks that cost you $300,000. We don't have enough. We're not running a high enough balance there, and especially when you do throw into account the problems that we're having with former landfills that we have to maintain that we don't really have an identified way to cover. And we've already talked the bridge fund. We've treated it as a slush fund, really, for the last, I don't know how many years, and it's still being treated that when we're supplementing our mowing with that cost or with this cash that's on hand. Hopefully you don't want to just take it out of there and move that to the general fund. Technically, you really could cover operations with that. It's just shooting yourself in the foot to do it because as we talked about an agreement where we're trying to do a Chrissy grant application with the short line on a $7 million project, we're kind of asked to put a good 20% of the cash of that project in. That's short math is about 1.4 million. If that's the case, it's using up the remainder of the balance pretty much. If we have to put 25% in, it is using up all the cash that's there. We need that money long and short just for some of the upkeep that's going on, and that neglects dealing with having a cost if we ever had to demo it in the future or having cash set aside. That's a major issue. It's not a today issue, but it is a long-term issue. I don't know how helpful that is, but just because there is some dynamics, there's a difference between having 20 million, being able to say we have 20 million cash between our different funds and it's saying that we have 20 million of cash available to talk about when we get into talking about our general fund, it's only a small piece of that. Most of the funds that we have are identified towards a specific purpose. Does that make sense? It's 11 o'clock.
I just want to say I appreciate the effort you put into this. You guys, this is great.
Well, good. I don't feel like I've gotten, I do feel kind of bad with, I would like to have had an overall summary of the general fund. In the past, up in Burlington, I was able to have that out there for the beginning of the budget season, but we had property valuations from the county December 7, and that's no longer something that happens. It was just January 29 that we got it this year, or I'm sorry, December 29. It's the 3 weeks plus makes a tremendous difference on how the budget season works. And everything's more complicated now. But next week I will try to get you summaries that show departmental summaries versus a revenue summary and I want to have that by fund. The primary one, again, is the general fund that we worry about, but having that for road use tax, sewer, solid waste, all of them is important so that you can just have a perspective of where are we budgeting? Are we budgeting losses or surpluses in all the different categories? And hopefully, it gives you a little bit better context. Absent that, any other questions, I certainly want to try to cover, but 3 hours is a long time and to deal with numbers, and you can only handle so much at any given time. I know that.
So we've got a budget meeting set for next Saturday morning, again at 8 AM. Sorry, what's the plan for that one?
Celeste, what do we normally do? And I do what's the remainder, and I'll probably do that through a summary of everything. And I know that part of what I need to cover then, I've already built in to my spreadsheets several different changes. I mentioned a couple of them this morning, cutting Brian's budget, cutting both Pam and Casey's budget a tad, and doing it with the nonprofits. I've made changes on those just because they make the most sense to me. But I'll give you a summary that lists out the different ones that I've already made changes and what I'm showing for a net cash flow. You guys are all going to have to approve that. I can't just do that on my own, but I think they're the ones that at the front end make the most sense. And then I want to be able to provide you with some other options that you can have out there for discussion about how do we cover our gap between revenues and expenditures.
So do you anticipate another budget session being needed after next Saturday?
Yes, I do. I can't imagine that I'm going to give you a list of 15 items for consideration, and you're going to, on the spot, want to make decisions on those. I think you're going to want to ask some questions. I think you're going to want some time to think through it and have people who have heard what is being suggested react and not be happy. You know, I mean, the long and short is, if anything that we're making changes that is cutting a service somewhere is going to have somebody upset. Each of them will have a different group. Each of the potential options will have a different group upset. Some of the things that will be discussed will only have internal people upset because it's hidden cost for how do you make operations work. But each of them has a different dynamic within the community, and you're going to need some time to make sure that you've heard some reactions to it and figure out what do we as a group, what do we agree on as a group for what makes sense out of the alternatives. And I think you're going to find it very hard to do it. I do.
Does that make sense to everybody? Is there anything else we need to do this morning?
I want to say
Yeah.
thanks to Brian, because he got away from the pulpit in the middle of everything, and the podium. I always say pulpit. Podium. I'm hoping the Lord's listening. No, going to help us out, but thanks, Brian, for your hard work, too.
And the other department heads did a good job, Casey.
Others? All right, we're adjourned.
Yep. Thank you. The ones that I've already made, I think the changes that I made in in planning, in housing, those were pretty, they're areas where they just don't feel comfortable losing